Bushwhacks were some of the worst days I've ever had in the mountains, or life, really.
Whereas Panther Mountain is totally opposite. It's a mountain on top of a crater.
I think the weather challenges on this incident were particularly difficult.
It was really the development of New York State. Catskills were responsible.
Now you're listening to Inside the Line, the Catskill Mountains Podcast.
All right, so episode 195. Ken Posner is on here. Did I say it correctly?
Yes, you did, Stosh.
See, you've been on here 2 episodes before, and I said it wrong both times. He didn't correct me. What a polite, nice, kind man. It must be because he's connected to the ground and stuff like that for himself.
Well, as we go there, Ken, do we need to take our shoes off for this podcast recording? Are your shoes on or off?
Mine are off, but you guys, let's be inclusive. You guys do what works for you.
Okay, so I'm going to take one shoe off then, because I don't want to feel you left out.
I know, right?
Right.
I got my socks on at least. Does everybody have their socks on?
I have no socks.
Oh,
I have no socks.
Oh, wow. Oh, the minority here. Jesus.
Actually, I wore my shoes a little bit today. I was down in Harriman and went out to do Mount Stevens or Stevens Mountain. And that thing is just covered in blueberry shrub. Little twiggy stuff now, and I had to be somewhere. I had to move faster, otherwise I'd still be out there, stuck and tangled and all that stuff. And it scratches your feet, so it's a little annoying. So I did put them on.
Oh, nice. We'll definitely get to that later. So that'll be a fantastic conversation. So once again, welcome to episode 195. Tonight, Ken joins us to talk about his new book, Chasing the Grid. Talks about doing the grid in the Catskills. Phenomenal book that we are going to have him on tonight to talk about. Yeah, so the couple things that come up to mind that we have to talk about. So we chatted this a while ago. I don't think it was in June when it started happening, is when that immovable moose up in the Adirondacks came about. And, that was a crazy little story because it was not moving off of the trail. I think it was Goodnow Mountain. And it was definitely a weird instance because, like the moose up here in the Catskills, we really don't have them. And then in the Adirondacks, they do have them. They're very rarely seen. It's a Goodman Mountain. So once again, a young male moose, 3 years old, was discovered lingering around the summit of Goodnow Mountain for roughly 3 months. It stayed in one place and seen unable to move off the trail, so they closed the trail starting June 6th. Eventually, the moose was euthanized on August 6th after a full necropsy. An animal autopsy was carried out by the New York State, and they said it was not due to brainworm, which we initially thought that it was. It definitely was suffering from some sort of disease and stuff like that, as it was had visible riz, spine, and hip bones, so it was not eating. In the brain, there were microscopic liaisons and signs of chronic inflammation. Scar tissue was found inside the chest and abdominal cavity, suggesting prior ongoing infection and inflammation. They ruled out a couple of these diseases, brainworm, also ruled out rabies, avian flu, West Nile, Eastern equine encephalitis, bovine diarrhea, bubonic plague, tularemia, and chronic wasting disease. Liver fluke parasites might have been present, but the damage was not extensive enough, and the brain liaisons in the moose declined, were undetermined somewhat, and they know other vials of disease were responsible. Once again, this was pretty crazy to hear about in the Adirondack, stuff like that. Even on any trail, you really haven't heard any kind of a moose blocking the way and just staying there. It's just very, very different to have while you're hiking and stuff like that. We haven't seen anything like that up here, like ever. Usually maybe there's a coyote or a bear that's lingering around Plateau, but they never cloned. I remember they had the bear lingering around the western part of Plateau Mountain for a little while. They didn't close that, but they did put up signs everywhere. So once again, we wanted to just bring you up to date on that. They did the autopsy, stuff like that. It's a mystery somewhat as of right now that we know of. The DEC still looking into it and seeing what they can come up with on that. So it's definitely a crazy little instance that we had up in the Adirondacks, as we've been having them lately in the Adirondacks. So what do you guys, Tad, Ken, what do you think of that? Like, you've been up in the Adirondacks quite a bit, right?
Yeah, I haven't seen any mooses though. It's a shame. Sounds like the moose had a difficult time.
Yeah, I mean, grateful that they noticed the problem, the situation, and they acted. They thought maybe they waited it out and stuff like that. June 6th is when it happened, and then they euthanized it in August. So they said that they noticed that they were like, hey, maybe let's give this a chance, but unfortunately, really nothing happened. So the moose, they put it down and did an autopsy. And good job. So
yeah, that's too bad. Moose are cool. I've never seen one face to face, but I've been warned not to, when they're around, not to get too close to them.
Of course, yeah. So Tad, what about you, buddy?
I don't know. You kind of had me stopped when you said we really don't have moose in the Catskills. So does that mean we don't have them, or that we might have them? The
mountain lions take them out. So
okay, okay, Ken. Well, so Ken provides a little reassurance that to the extent that there are moose in the Catskills, the mountain lions are neutralizing them. Oh, look, it's a sad story with the moose up in the Adirondacks. I just wonder why it is he picked a trail to hang out on. Was he like trying to get help from humans by doing that, or was he just that confused and disorientated that he was unaware that he was on a trail and having people coming by? Just kind of an interesting feature of that situation.
Yeah, definitely interesting. Once again, you don't see this very often anywhere, so it was widespread across the East Coast and it hit out in the West Coast too as well, because you don't see it very often. So crazy. Once again, I wanted to keep you updated on that. Also, Proposal 1 or Amendment 1 today is voting day for us New Yorkers, for us areas and stuff like that. So there was a Proposal 1, Amendment 1 in your ballots, supposedly. To be honest, I didn't see it in there for some reason.
It's on the back side.
There was.
Did you look on the back of the ballot?
I did. There was nothing.
Well, it sounds like the election up where you were was rigged. You're gonna have to storm your local balloting place and smash things.
So
protest.
A little background about that. There is the Constitutional Amendment, Proposal 1, often called Amendment 1, which deals with the land use in the Adirondacks. The state is asking voters to approve continued use of the development of Mount Van Hoevenberg Olympic Sports Complex in North Alba, which is home to the Nordic ski and biathlon trails that have operated for decades up there in the Adirondacks. Under New York's Forever Wild law clause, those forest preserved lands are meant to remain untouched. So this amendment is basically the state's way of making that the use officially legal and in line with the Constitution. If voters approve of this measure, which once again this comes out a little after the vote, it would allow about 323 acres of trails and related facilities to remain on state forests, preserved land, while requiring the state to add at least 2,500 other acres of new forests to preserve elsewhere. A yes vote means you're okay with this trade-off, keeping the Olympic site active and expanding and preserve elsewhere. A no means you want the forever wild to be in the Adirondacks. It's definitely, I've heard this is, the funny thing is my mother-in-law brought this up to me this weekend. So I was like, are you serious? I haven't, once again, I am totally out of this fucking political shit. I just don't want it. I don't want it in my life anymore. But it's definitely a different kind of deal. Once again, we have the Olympic sports complex up there in the Adirondacks that has been, like they said, going on for decades. We had the Olympics up there in the 1970s, 1960s, 1970s. When was that? 60s,
1980 right? And I think 1936.
Okay, I'm wrong. I was wrong. So we had that up there. So you got to keep it update. And you know what? If they want to bring it back again, there might be some changes that they'd have to make and somewhat. So you got to keep going with the flow. And this proposal, this amendment one, proposal one, is definitely a big deal. Coming in, if they do keep it going, they can maintain the trails up at Mount Vancouver and then add 2,500 additional acres of trail in the Adirondacks. So it's definitely something that I didn't follow and stuff like that I had no clue about until this previous weekend. So I don't know what Tad, you have some good notes about this. Have you been following this? Did you know about this?
I knew about it. I won't say I was following it until I saw you put it in the show notes, and then I did a little flyover and actually looked at the proposed language. So it on the one hand does not directly change the language in the Forever Wild clause, but it amends the exceptions to the Forever Wild clause. And I took exception to the exceptions. So one of my comments is, and I think I have essentially 4 comments here. It says that if this amendment is adopted, the Olympic Sports Authority can maintain the exempted area in accordance with international standards. My view is international standards change from time to time. They're evolving. Back in 1932, I was wrong, it wasn't 36. In 1932, when they held the first Olympics in Lake Placid, they didn't have snowmaking. They actually had to truck in snow because it wasn't a great winter. But now they do have snowmaking. And it's conceivable that current standards 15, 20, 35 years from now might entail a lot of snow guns along these trails, in-ground cooling or chilling, things of that nature, maybe grandstands along the trails, maybe artificial lighting. I mean, there could be a lot of conceivable changes to the international standards. And so the proposed amendment, as written, would seem to allow the Olympic Authority to continually modernize these trails. And so is that consistent with being next to a Forever Wild area? I don't know. I think you could debate that. The next portion of the amendment that I took exception to is it says that they were allowed to have these trails for Nordic skiing, biathlons, and to accommodate global competition, training, and events. Well, what the hell does that mean, events? Motocross racing, ATV racing, those Bigfoot. Yeah, well, mountain biking is pedal powered. We already know that at Whiteface, over the summer, they cut down trees they weren't supposed to. Shame on them. But, what they talk about having other events, but they don't restrict the other events. I think it should read other similar events, like human-powered things, not motorized events. But I would say that they shouldn't allow barefoot events there because we know that really tears up the terrain. I'm just joking because we have Ken on the show tonight, interjecting a little humor here. So, right. And then it talks about the trade-off. It sounds juicy that they are going to be able to alter the nature and texture of about 1,000 acres, and in exchange, the state is going to acquire 2,500 acres. But there's no limitation on when they're going to do that. In the next 5 years, the next 10 years, the next 25 years? Or are we just going to keep hearing they're working on it? We're working on it. We're working on it. And then it doesn't tell us exactly what type of lands we're getting. You would think that they're going through all this process to put this on the state ballot and have people vote for it, but they haven't identified any lands that they're acquiring, although they say lands of equal or greater value. But how do you measure value? It's like art, isn't it? Not all lands are the same. 1 acre might be more valuable than another acre. A tillable field is valuable to a farmer, but to a hiker, maybe not as valuable as a hemlock grove or an old growth forest. So I think there's just a lot of elements to this that are poorly defined and should be better defined. And while the idea of getting more land sounds good, it also kind of looks like an opportunity for the community up there to get put off for a while. So those are my 2 cents. What about you, Ken? You got any thoughts on this?
Well, I think you bring up great points, Tad, because the devil's in the details. I do like the idea of expanding acreage net. Edward Wilson called for 50% of land in the world to be preserved. And in the U.S., people have talked about 30 by 30, getting to 30% by 2030. I don't know if we're really on target for that. So I like the idea of expanding, increasing the land that's protected. But I think we also want to be careful. And Tad, I think part of what you're saying is we want to be careful about creating precedents, right?
Yeah.
We want it, but particularly for something that's constitutionally protected.
Yeah. It's definitely a touchy subject. Once again, I wish this would have been, I would have found out about this earlier so we could chat about this before the freaking voting happened. But it's, once again, like you said, Tad, it seems like, it was rushed about and then all of a sudden this was thrown in our faces a week before the voting happened. Like, unless that's just me.
Yeah, well, obviously this has been cooking for a while because my understanding of the backstory is that these trails are already in existence. These trails are already in forever wild territory. And basically what they're saying is we need to correct this error. And it's easier, they think, to buy land and make the land that the trails are on no longer protected or no longer as protected as what should be forever wild. But when you want to even dive further into the details, ask yourself who pays for the acquisition of the lands. Is it the Olympic Authority or is it the state in general? Does it come out of the Environmental Protection Fund? My understanding is that the cost of acquiring the lands is going to be taken out of more of a general fund, whether that's an environmental bond fund that all taxpayers pay into, or just out of your general budget, again, which all taxpayers pay into. But it's not intended to be paid for by the Olympic sports complex,
right?
Which is, to the greatest extent they can have it, a standalone entity that's supposed to be I'm not going to say necessarily self-funding or 100% self-funding, but it would seem to me that they should not try to spread the burden across everyone on the state on the one hand. On the other hand, when it comes down to it, if we all benefit from the use of those lands, then maybe we all should pay for it. Because if we get too strict on this, then next thing we know, they're going to make hikers pay for land acquisitions in the Catskills and elsewhere, and that wouldn't be good. That's my 2 cents.
Correct. So Whiteface is not run by the Olympic Sports Authority, is it? That's cool. It is. No. So as Gore is as well, right?
Yeah, the 3 state supported ski areas, Bel Air, Gore, and Whiteface, are all now run by the Olympic Sports Authority, whereas in the past, the DEC ran Bel Air and the other 2 were run by the Olympic Authority.
So what the hell's the difference of them cutting a couple trees off for the mountain bike thing and then doing amazing grooming and stuff like this for Mount Van Hoevenberg? Why did they go all out, balls out to prosecute them for doing shit up in Whiteface that is like minimal compared to like,
I won't say they went all out prosecuting up there, but I think it's also somewhat like Sean Iannucci said when he was on the show. Let's do it now and ask for forgiveness later.
Yeah.
You know, they had this event coming up. Somebody decided, or some group of people decided, hey, let's cut down some trees and, you know, to accomplish whatever end. Maybe it was something just as simple as safety for the competitors or for the spectators. But they decided to go ahead and cut these trees. I understand from other things I read that they actually tried to bury the trees up there.
Nice.
Right? Which then means you have to excavate holes to put the trees in. I mean, that's worse than just cutting down some trees. Now you're really disturbing soil when you do that, which then creates soil erosion. You know, just all these bad things seem to flow from it. So my attitude is if you're not hiking or backcountry skiing, then you shouldn't be out in forever wild lands recreating in any form whatsoever. And in fact, I'm going to go so far to say is if you aren't a habitual addicted listener to this podcast, you have no business being in any forever wild lands in the state of New York.
Jesus Christ.
Yeah, that's right.
That's right. Well,
we're turning this into a dictatorship. All right, I'm getting off the rails here.
Yeah.
Let's move along. Let's talk about rescues.
Yeah, so this recent rescue we had once again on Halloween, town of Hunter, Forest Ranger Dawson. Dawson's like a superstar up there, responded to a call for a hiker with a knee injury below North Point. Dawson reached the 57-year-old artist at Artist Rock and assisted the hiker back to North South Lake campground. Resources were clear at 3:30, so that was an hour and 5 minutes rescue.
Yeah.
That's pretty fast.
Yeah. That's what I was gonna say. It was like North Artist Rock, North South Lake. You'd have to go back down and kind of like back. That's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Didn't seem like too much of an injury, but
you can't even get DoorDash out there that fast.
Right. Good point. So the one thing that I read up on all the rescues that were happening, it seemed like every single rescue besides this one was a lost hunter out in the woods.
Oh, really? Wow.
Yeah, Schoharie up in Otsego County. There's one in Oneida County. All these were lost hunters out there. They shot the deer. They went to look for it, and they were lost. And they called.
So they were all chasing deer, and they got disorientated and couldn't get themselves out of the woods.
Those must be. Well, I don't want to say anything snarky about folks getting lost, but it just made me think of the Sutton Memorial in the northern Catskills. And I think it was Don Sutton, how he hunted those mountains for 40 years. I doubt he got lost. Or back then, there would not have been anybody to come look for him.
Correct. And, once again, like the area, you should have a general perspective on where you're hunting and like entry, exit points. When you can go lower in elevation, you're like, this doesn't seem right.
Well, one of the challenges, we all use Google Maps and we all use, navigational apps on our phones, and you get used to following a dot and you forget how to pay attention and remember where you are.
Mm-hmm.
And look, even a skilled person can get lost or disoriented, but it does seem like navigational skills have declined significantly from where they would have been 20, 30, 40, 50 years ago.
Of course. Yeah. And most of us here, we've hiked in the Catskills numerous amounts of time. And, I could tell you the terrain of a Slide Mountain by just like talking to you instead of like looking at a map and stuff like that, to tell you where the points are, the highest elevation points, where the ridges are, stuff like that. And some of these hunters go out there for their first time. They don't know that stuff. They don't know how, like you said, follow the dots, what happens if this happens, and they don't know the certain maps that they could use. They use Google Maps or something like that. I'm just like, no, that's not it won't work. So
yeah. So I'm going to offer this in defense of the hunters, as I understand we're supposed to do from time to time. Defend the hunters.
They do pay for their for their we don't have to pay.
That, there are a lot of deer as it stands.
Oh yeah,
True.
Right? Maybe more so outside of the Catskills than in the Catskills. But generally speaking, when most of our listeners and when at least Ash and I, maybe Ken as well, go out hiking, it's very destination orientated. We're either going to a summit or a series of summits, or from point A to point B on a trail or on a loop. But when you're a hunter and you're trying to find that deer you just shot, you're kind of randomly going around all over the place.
True.
And you're not stopping, every few minutes to plot, where you are, etc. So yeah, I can see how their different task or objective out of the woods might lead them to lose track of where they are. On the one hand, on the other hand, 99.999% of the public has a smartphone in their pocket that is very helpful when it comes to getting them out of the woods. So I think that's interesting that you had all these hunters.
But bushwhacking in the Catskills can get adventurous. I was going up I think it's Richmond Mountain in the northern Catskills. And, I have that smartphone in my pocket, and I tapped on it, and it didn't unlock.
Yeah.
So I went up the quarter mile to the top of Richmond without my phone, and made it and didn't get lost. And then my phone came back to life. And I'm like, cool, okay, I did get to the top. And so I put the phone away and walked back the same way I came, and somehow walked down exactly the wrong side of the mountain. And I was like, the trail should be right here. It should be right here. It should be right here. What's going on? I pull out my phone. Holy crap, I just went exactly the wrong way.
Yeah.
So even the most experienced of us can get confused in the Catskills for sure.
So have you ever had this one happen to you? You show
Probably.
up. Yeah. You drive over the Catskills. You show up to where you're going to do some hike, taking a untrailed ridge or ravine up to a ridge, then presumably onto a summit. And you pull out your phone, you queue up Gaia, and there's nothing there. There's no detail. It's like somehow your phone has completely purged the memory data for that map, and you have no cell signal where you are, so it can't reload it. And then you have the dilemma. What do I do? Do I like drive back to where I can like reload my phone with stuff, or do I just set out and go? And that's why when bringing a map is really helpful, because when your phone is for whatever reason not giving you what you need to have to rely on it, if you have a map, I think generally in the Catskills it's pretty easy navigating, because it's basically just a bunch of ridges and ravines or valleys. So
that is the only navigational mishap that has not happened to me.
Oh, really?
But paper maps aren't perfect either. I was on the John Muir Trail a couple of years ago, and I passed, I forget which creek it was, and stopped to get some water and check the paper map, and went on. And a couple miles later, I reached into my pocket to pull out the map, and it wasn't there.
Yeah.
It was back at the creek. I was so upset. I had to go all the way back 2 miles to get it.
Yeah.
Yikes.
So, it may be that I just have a unique ability to have navigational problems.
So here's my favorite navigational snafu is back in the day when I was like pseudo organizing or leading group hikes. I showed up at the meeting point. It was going to be, a car shuttle. So we hopped in the car. We drove off to where we were starting. And my phone has like no detail on it. And so I had to do the whole hike via map. And I did pretty good. I'm impressed with myself. It was North Dome Cheryl. Nobody knew. I didn't let anybody know that it was like, hiking in the blind that day, but I managed to pull it off. And that's also to you newer hikers out there, you're thinking, well, what's the big deal? There's a pretty good beaten trail from one mountain to the other out there. This was back like in 2018, before those herd paths had so consolidated that,
although the herd path, even in 2018, the herd path from Sherrill to North Dome was reasonably clear. There's a soggy spot on the the western side of maybe North Dome where it petered out. But I had sort of a similar problem. Sometimes I'll go out and do what's called natural navigation.
Mm-hmm.
So natural navigation is finding your way through the forest with no map, no compass, no GPS. And if you're going to be a hard ass, don't even look at your watch. Now you put all that stuff.
When you say don't look at your watch, are you talking about a navigational watch or just the watch at the time of day?
Even the time.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. But so you put all that stuff in your pack, so if you get totally screwed up, you can recover, and the search and rescue teams will be out there doing grid operations looking for you. So we were going to do a natural navigation ascent, and this was me and my friend Cal Ghosh, and we were going to do North Dome Sherrill, but there's a little stream that comes down from the saddle, and we took some open fields to the left of it, just because it was easier walking. And instead of doing North Dome Sherrill, we did Sherrill North Dome. So we got to the top. Actually, we got halfway up, and I was like, this doesn't feel right. This does not feel right. And I pulled out my GPS and took a peek at it, or my phone, and saw we had gone up the wrong way. But the natural navigation is actually, it's a great practice, and it's a lot of fun to do with friends. It's a great practice because it teaches you, again, okay, pay attention, understand the lay of land, look around you. And those are all the skills you lose when you're just staring at the phone, or even with a map and compass. In my Army days, which were a long time ago, and not it was a pretty short time in the Army, but we did extensive map and compass navigation, and I've always struggled with that in the Catskills, because when I follow my compass, it takes me straight into a pile of deadfall, straight to the base of a sandstone ledge, straight through all the worst stuff. And the natural navigation teaches you, okay, if you know where, or if you have a sense of where you are, look for the lines, through the best lines up the mountain, instead of just barreling right through the worst obstacles.
Yeah. I also, and kind of jumping ahead, but when I was working on my grid, and you've hiked this mountain X times before, sometimes it's just fun not to look at a map, not to look at your phone, just read the land, the shadows coming off the trees, where the sun is, maybe even where the snow is blown up on one side of the trees versus the other, and just rough it, so to speak, without any navigational equipment, because it makes it a challenge again.
Yeah, Ted, I agree with that 1,000%. And I don't want to jump ahead, Stash, but one of the themes in the book is that we have so much technology, and it cuts us off from nature.
Yeah,
you don't pay attention. You're protected from the heat and the cold. You have constant snacks and water, etc. So some of us just, we want to embrace, we already have enough technology probably in our lives, right? We want to lose that stuff and connect the old-fashioned way. That's my theory.
No, like,
totally agree.
Yeah, and sometimes I just like to navigate myself. I know the terrain, and not the terrain, but the ridges, stuff like that. Keep an eye on the ridges, stuff like that. Don't even look like a map. Don't even look at your phone. Yeah. Just follow your kind of like instincts and your thoughts, and just be like, wow, this feels good. Oh, I'm drifting a little bit to the right. Let me stay in the middle. Like, this doesn't feel right. Let me get back on track. It's comforting to know that you can do that. Kind of like boost your confidence to these survival skills. I mean, if you do it once, that's cool. You do it a couple times, once again, you'll get more and more confident that you can, I wouldn't say survive out there, but you can do pretty well if you can, get off of a mountain yourself without doing any technology like they used to do, 40 years ago and stuff like that. It's a phenomenal experience.
They're beautiful ridges in the Catskills, and you just walk along them, and sometimes you have nice views, and sometimes you just see the light out on either side of you. And it sure beats, scrambling up, a steep slope at a slant.
Yeah, correct. So awesome. We totally went off topic on that, but that's awesome. No, that's great. This is what I love. That's what I love about the podcast. It's not like straight going back and forth, but we follow our desires, our wants, and stuff like that.
We're like feral mountain lions.
God, just go all over the place. So also, once again, thank you to the monthly supporters, Bob LeCan, Chris Gerbian, Jeff Jotz, Vicky Ferrer, Mikey S., John Comissi, Summit Seekers, Desert City Radio, Betsy A., Denise W., Vanessa, Jim C., and Eric. Wow, amazing. Thank you guys for supporting the show. Really appreciate it. Once again, we'll be making a donation to some local organizations soon. Also, thank you to the amazing sponsors of the show. So embark on transformative journey with Another Summit. Another Summit is dedicated to serving veterans and first responders with free outdoor activities. Activities like walks in nature, paddling, hiking, and even backpacking. Join our supportive community to rejuvenate in nature's embrace. Experience camaraderie, adventure, and healing at no cost. Take your next step with Another Summit and ascend to new heights of resilience and joy. Apply today on anothersummit.org. Ken, that's something you should look into, a former Army guy, so check it out. You could help some people out. I mean, you got enough on your goddamn shoulder, so never mind. Discover Camp Catskill in Tannersville, your ultimate hiking store. Find top quality gear, apparel, and accessories for all your outdoor adventures. Our expert staff is to hear and help every hiker, from beginners to seasoned pros. We also carry a variety of unique Catskill souvenirs and gifts. Visit us online at campcatskill.co or in the store to gear up for your next journey. Adventure starts at Camp Catskill. So, are you really outdoors? Once again, mention the podcast on one of your hikes through social media, and we'll make it count, and then we'll chat about it on the show, because it doesn't count unless you tag us. So Ken's been out, but he hasn't been tagging us, so it doesn't count.
I need to start doing that.
All those grids.
Maybe we have to retract the book then, if you didn't tag us when you were writing the book. Shame on you, Ken.
Right. I will try to do. I will do better.
Okay, we'll accept that. Otherwise, your lawyers will hear from ours.
I don't have any lawyers.
Oh, hey, good. Same here. So Vicky F49, aka Vicky, was out with a client doing a waterfall challenge near the Auburn area. I suggest you check that out. I might have that in the show notes. I'll try to get that in the show notes. Cool area up in Albany, has a lot of great waterfall areas that aren't that long that the family could do. It's a great outing adventure. Also, off in the woods, Sean went up North Dome and Sherrill and completed his 33rd peaks. 33 peaks. He only has his winter left, and he met a lot of amazing people up there. He met Joanne Beyond Blazes as well. It's a good time, and a good friend of mine, Ed Moran, was up there leading the 3500 Club hike. Scion 72, Sean was South Gully Trail on the long path to Sam's Point to do Inside the Lines. She likes to make fun of me about. Rose Girl was soaking up the last bits of fall on some sort of trail that I have no clue she was on. So, Rose, get back to me. Mighty Mischievous Danny was down in the city showing us some Catskill Inside the Line podcasts bling up on some local streetlight. Wouldn't say to do that, but hey, I'll embrace the love. Catskill Mountains Bruce Scott did Balsam Lake Mountain with Lynn and Zerl, then did Wyndham Blackhead Range a couple days later. The Lollipop Loop starting at Barnum Road and then ending at Peck Road with the road walk back to Barnum. I haven't done that yet, but I really want to.
They did a road walk back to Barnum.
What else would you do, right?
Well, I would either bike and hike it if it was a warmer day, or I would hitchhike. I guarantee you would get a ride.
And he didn't say anything else other than that. So, I mean, good for them. That's what's 14 miles from Barnum to Peck Road. And then you have that kind of like a mile and a half road walk back, maybe a little bit longer.
Peck to Barnum is more than a mile and a half.
I've heard people like...
Oh, trust me, I biked that.
Biked it, so yeah.
Many times. And I've hitchhiked down Big Hollow Road quite a few times, but I've never done the road walk.
This sounds like you were like hiking in the 70s, but you weren't. Like it's
No, I was chasing the grid. That's what I was doing.
Nice.
So solo, but yeah, I used my thumb or my pedals, one or the other.
Nice. So Hiker Goddess' adventures. Vicky went up Sugarloaf with Barbara. Had it look like a fantastic time. And then finally, Labradante, Brad went up North Dome and Cheryl on a beautiful day. Once again, a lot of people tagging North Dome and Cheryl lately. So perfect time because there's no freaking nettles.
True.
And Ken.
Well, you know what the worst? I think I have the worst. I can claim the worst bushwhack misadventure of any kind of vegetation in the Catskills.
I don't doubt that.
And it's, I'll give you a hint, it's right on the banks of the Westkill, coming down from Evergreen.
Oh, going down to like, going like kind of, I always like kind of refer this to the Westkill Brewing kind of area. So
a little bit further out from
west.
there. Yeah. So it's not First Bruce, much worse than that. It's not nettles. It's not cow parsnip. It's not berry canes. It's not, impossible beech or hobblebush. It's not laurel. Laurel can get nasty.
Yeah.
I've been in laurel where my feet weren't touching the ground. It's
an invasive
multiflora. Yeah, the rose, the rose thickets.
Wow,
that's not good because they. So yeah, there's a rose thicket, multiflora rose, right there in the Westkill, and I got stuck in that. There's a little deer tunnel going through it. I almost started shouting for help. I was like, somebody,
oh really? Yeah.
Bring a chainsaw or a flamethrower.
Barefoot?
That was one of I had to pull out my shoes.
Okay. Oh, we'll talk about that later. That's a good point. So excellent. Thank you everybody for tagging us on the show. Really appreciate it. Those count. Everybody else's doesn't. So, boom. Thank you once again. Also, if you think we're doing a good job and you want to support us, support also your local areas and stuff like that, buy us a coffee hard cider on buymeacoffee.com. Link is in the show notes. Also, you can rate the show. 5 stars or more is kind of preferred. I would say that's the only one allowed, really. And so is anybody besides me drinking anything? Besides coffee?
I'll go. Yeah, it's first Tuesday of the month, so it's No Brew Tuesday for me. I'm drinking a cup of home roasted Colombian coffee. I did a few batches on Sunday, came out really nice. So I'm enjoying one tonight with Stosh and Ken.
Nice. That's like coffee here right now is just absolutely insane to me. So, Ken, what about you?
Just some tea.
Nice. All right. Well, I guess I gotta do the initiation. There we go. So it came through. Let me put that back to auto. So, wow, this smells delicious. So I saw this in the Hannaford thing. It's 1911 sugar plum hard cider.
And the verdict? He's swishing it around in his mouth. Now he's a little gargling.
Delicious.
He's snorting it. The verdict is delicious, I hear.
Delicious. I went to Margaretville today, and I actually looked at their selection of like local stuff when they're in the, what is it called? The Margaretville kind of like supermarket that's right there.
When it's the only one in town, it's just known as the grocery store or supermarket.
Yeah, the grocery store. Yeah. They have a good selection of stuff. They don't have a great selection of hard cider, but they have a great selection of local brews, IPA, stuff like that. So,
yeah.
All right. So, previous hikes. I'm going to go last because I had one of the most glorious days I've ever had in the mountains. Ken, talk about your last hike that you went on.
Well, this morning I snuck out and did Stockbridge Mountain, South Stockbridge, and Stevens Mountain in Harriman. And, these are small mountains, just around 1,000 feet. But as you guys know, Harriman is cool with the grassy summits and the open forest and very walkable, right? No real scrambling. So that was fun.
Yeah.
But can you I'm not familiar with that area. Of course, it's more of like Pitch Pine area, Hobblebush, stuff like that, right?
Well, down in Harriman, it's oak trees mostly, and some white pine, and a lot of blueberry brush, and then grassy open slopes with rock slabs covered with lichen.
Yeah,
beautiful views.
Yeah, in some places there are the weird views of New York City, which is just so odd to see off in the distance. Otherwise, you have, views of the rolling hills and ridgelines in Harriman.
So, Ken, when you hiked Stockbridge and Stevens, do you get far enough away that you're no longer hearing road traffic?
Mostly.
Okay.
You do have the thruway that's not too far off on the west side of Harriman.
Yeah.
And people drive through on the weekends. People drive through Harriman. You see these sports cars and motorcycles, and sometimes they're going pretty fast and get pretty loud. But
the word that comes to my mind is aggressively. They drive aggressively. Okay, especially the motorcycle crowd. They're really just airing it out, turning that throttle, getting on it hard. They usually ride in groups. But I've only hiked over in that part of the Hudson Valley a few times, and Ken's comment that it's grassy is very accurate. I mean, it's almost like hiking through a park when you go over there.
Nice.
And you see a lot of remnants of the ice sheet having come across that and retreated. It's kind of remarkable from that standpoint. So a pleasant place to go, very accessible. Glad to see Ken get over there.
Yeah, I always say the best mountains are the ones you can get to. So for me, it's an hour. Actually, I can an hour to the Catskills, an hour to Harriman. So I'm count myself as fortunate to be able to go in both directions.
Yeah, and 5 minutes to the Gunks.
Yeah, they're right behind me. Yeah,
nice.
So there you go.
Sounds fantastic.
So on Saturday, I had some early afternoon family commitments.
Oh,
yeah, that necessitated that I kind of do a short, abridged hike, if you will. And in my mind during the week, I was like fantasizing about bushwhacking this and bushwhacking that and making this possible and that possible, and still being able to get home by 3:00 and not ruin the family plans. And then I had this watershed moment Saturday morning where I decided to hike Hawkett and just keep it simple. I just stayed on, the beaten social path up and down. I did explore more at the bottom for all those rock stacks or cairns that were at the bottom. So I probably spent half an hour, 45 minutes walking around and looking in areas that I hadn't explored before for those. But, it was interesting driving up. I wasn't expecting snow at the summit, but hiking up when I got about 3,100 feet, I did run into the snow line. It was just more than a light dusting of snow, but not enough to really cover everything. It was more than what I had seen the prior week on Slide Mountain. And I got up, I signed in. It was very cold and windy at the top, but not as cold and windy as Mountain Summit forecast had told us it was going to be the day before. So I completed the hike, got back down to my Jeep, and then, Stosh, guess what I did next? What was my post-hike activity?
You went to some sort of burger place.
Well, later on, I did go to Moonburger and New Paltz, but on my way back, because it was so early, I don't even think it was noon yet, of all places, I stopped in Phoenicia, and I did some shopping in downtown Phoenicia. I went to this place called the Nest Egg. Have you ever seen it?
I've heard of it. Yeah, it's like I think that's where one time I got my spikes from.
Really? Okay. They had some hiking and camping stuff in there. An eclectic collection of touriste gifts, a decent collection of books and maps. So I picked up Robert and Joanna Titus's book, The Hudson Valley in the Ice Age. I picked up some scented candles.
Nice.
and I picked up some stickers. Then I set out because I'm trying to finish the all trails, and I have like 2 little trails left to do. And so when I was in Phoenicia, I decided to knock off the Tan Bark Trail, which is a whopping 2.3 miles, 615 feet of vertical gain. And I finished the Tan Bark Trail in the fastest known TAD time of 61 minutes.
Nice.
Yeah, it was great. It's a very young forest over there. Extensive evidence of old quarry roads, maybe a bark road, but in the main, just older logging roads in a young forest that is grown up, in the last 75 to 100 years, maybe. You also see a lot of evidence of quarrying activity there, and there's some of those interpretive displays as you hike through there that describe the old quarry activities. And then when I was done with that, I topped off my thermos at Brios with coffee. Their coffee isn't that good, although we know their pizza is. The coffee, I wish there was a Stewart's nearby. But once I filled up my thermos, I went over to the Phoenicia Arts and Antique Store. Ken, you ever been there?
I have not been there, Tad. It sounds really interesting.
It is. It's worth going in because number one, it's free. Number two, they had some really good art from local artists. The whole spectrum of mediums, from charcoals to paints, acrylics, watercolors, photography, then a bunch of old antiques and collectibles. I wasn't so much impressed with the antiques and collectibles, but yeah, I did spend some time taking in the art at the Phoenicia Arts and Antique Store, which is open Saturdays and Sundays, free to go in. They let me walk around with my thermos of mediocre Brios coffee. And then afterwards, on my return home, I stopped at the Moonburger in downtown New Paltz and picked up 2 Impossible Burgers.
Nice.
To munch on with my wife when I got back to the house. So that was my Saturday hike. Hopefully this coming weekend, something more challenging.
What'd you think about the what did we call them? The Native American landscape sculptures. Believable, a little bit unbelievable because it's lower elevation, Yeah,
I in general, I would not relate this to any prehistoric human activity if it weren't for the fact that a few years ago I got preoccupied every time that I was within a 1/8 of a mile on either side of, I guess they call it, is it the line of Manitou that the sun follows on the summer solstice? That I would, in the Catskills, I would look for these things. Yeah. And I'll be damned if I don't find them all over the place along that line. It's pretty interesting. So I've found them to the west of Hawkett, to the north of Vly Mountain. Okay. That's the furthest west I've found them. And then heading east, you find a lot of them. Along the Ashokan Trail, you see them there. I've seen them on that Breath Hill. I've run into a lot out there, bushwhacking up Balsam Cap from that side. So it's very unusual that I hike off trail all over in the Catskills and you don't see these things until you get into that bandwidth that follows the summer solstice trajectory of the sun. Then you start seeing these things. And why is that? Was it just a bunch of guys out there practicing natural navigation and making rock stacks to mark this? I don't know. Interesting. Yeah. So maybe for Christmas, my wife will buy me some radiocarbon dating device and I can go out there and, take samples and come back with some real data.
Hey.
Maybe when I'm unpiling the stones under each rock stack, you know what I think I'll find, Stosh?
A sticker of inside the line.
No. A crone. I'm going to find a crone. Each stack has a crone buried. Ken, you know what a crone is?
No, I don't, Ted.
Ken, you didn't listen to like 2 shows ago. We talked about the Catskill crone. You don't know anything of the Catskill crone?
I will try to do better.
Yeah, you need to listen to the episode. Don't watch the documentary about the Catskill crone, but it's a real story. Maybe not a real thing. Well, it is, but it was believed to have weird psychic energy.
Nice.
So, yeah, but we get down to the nitty gritty here on Inside the Line, as we always do.
As always.
All right, Stosh, I guess that takes us up to you. I gave you as much time as I could to cue up your hiking story from what you said was one of the best days, the most beautiful days in the Catskills. I saw your photo. I tend to agree with you.
So, dude, I just had the previous night, today I hiked up, I'm still dead beat from today. So I'm floating on whatever it is that I'm floating on right now. But last night at Oneonta, it was raining hard. We got 1 or 2 inches of rain, and I'm just man, tomorrow is going to be shitty. My initial objective was to go up Slide and Cornell. I haven't been to Cornell in a very long time, and in fact, I haven't been up to Cornell since 2018. So it's been a while.
Since 2018, you haven't been to Cornell?
Correct.
Wow. What do you think of that, Ken?
That's a long time not to. Well, of course, you don't have to deal with the crack. Now, of course, Ted, I couldn't help but sneaking a look on the internet about the crone of the Catskills.
Yeah.
That looks sort of creepy.
Yeah.
Yes, that was the Halloween episode that we had.
All right.
It was crazy. Check it out. It's definitely.
I think I have the record for doing the crack the most times on one hike.
Nice. So I approached it once again on 2018. I actually approached it from Moonhaw. We did the Cornell slide, and then we summited Cornell, and then went to the Dink, and then went down through there. So that was the last time I was up there. And I was just you know what? I want to go visit Cornell again. I want to get back up there. So I went. My objective once again was Slide, then Cornell, then back. And I was just man, the ice is going to be crazy because it's only 40 degrees at my house. It's Slide. It's windy here. Slide. It's got to be crazy. I got to Slide Trailhead. There's one car in there and it was 39 degrees. I'm cool. This is great. Start climbing up Slide. Wind is howling like crazy. Freaking you can hear it. It sounds like ocean waves the whole time. That is my reason of hiking, besides the viewpoints, was just hearing that wind howl.
You're on the Jeep Trail?
Yep. Yeah, I went up the Jeep Trail. Even though there was a lot of wind and stuff like that, the only blowdown I saw was the beginning of the Curtis Holmesview Trail, and I reported that in. I could have taken it down with my hands off if I had one, but I didn't. Shame on Stosh for not doing that shit. But all the way up Slide, it's beautiful. You could book up there. I'll just say my time. I reached the Slide in 1 hour and 10 minutes, which is pretty good for me. I think that's pretty good. Yeah. But once you get above 3,500, there's a little turn that takes you left, a sharp turn that takes you left up Slide. Whenever I go up Slide Mountain, that's when I hit the weather, when it starts getting windy or it's snow or it's rain. It's really crazy because I think it takes you over one little ridge, that little ridge of Slide, and it starts getting crazy. So I'm waiting for it, and I hit that turn, and all of a sudden it just starts getting windier. I'm 20-mile-per-hour winds constant. It's starting to get cold. Snow is starting to happen, and I'm just I'm all right, so it's time to get on my shell. I only have my moisture wicking long slur and a regular shirt above that. I get on my shell, I get on my gloves, and once again, you start cooking in that. It's not bad, but I start getting a little bit higher up. It's just powdered sugar. It's no ice, which is crazy. No ice anywhere. Just the powdered sugar snow, and it was glorious. wind was howling. Frickin', you hear those gusts, and like I said, it sounds like ocean waves of when it's just like a little blow, and then all of a sudden just a freaking hard gust. And I hit the summit. Well, I hit the viewpoint. I look out, and over like the western path of Devil's Path is a huge snow squall happening. Like it's blocking all of Devil's Path, like the western part of Devil's Path. And I'm just like, damn, that must have been fun. I hope somebody's over there enjoying that right now, because I was missing. There was a little snowfall here and there, but I was like, man, that would have been epic to be a part of. And once again, the wind is just howling like crazy. Summit, I start going down slide, and I forgot of how crazy that descent down slide is on the eastern side.
Were the stairs
Right.
slippery?
Yeah. Everything was just, I was smiling because I'm like, this is awesome. This is fun. But then I was like, wow, this is fucking crazy. Like, I forgot how crazy it was. Like, it just doesn't stop with the endless ledges and stuff. The stairs had a little coating of snow, and I did like put my poles onto the side and like kind of like slow stepped. Nothing to be too crazy about.
Are you facing forward, or are you facing the mountain as you go down the stairs?
Forward. I was facing towards Cordell and Wittenberg.
Okay, like a real man descends stairs.
A real human being, yes.
I'm proud of you, Stosh. Okay, carry on.
Yeah. Once again, the wind was just kind of playing that pivotal role of just, this is amazing. It's a fantasy. Like, I love the wind. The wind, the extreme weather is what kind of like gets me going and stuff like that. And I get down into the cold, the springs flowing, stuff like that. I get out into the cold, and I see the areas of where you can camp and stuff like that, and they are just bare as fuck. Like, people have been taken down. There's no wood there at all. You can easily tell where they're camping and stuff like that. I'm just like, God damn, these places are getting destroyed. Like, no wonder why people are cutting down trees for wood, because there's no dead wood out there. So just that kind of sunk me a little in a little bit. But another time is the last time I was in that call is when I did a hike in 2017, is when we did the bowl of the slide area where we looked for a plane crash. And that was one of the most horrific hikes I've ever had. Side hilling for like a mile and a half across that crazy side was just horrible. So,
and it's thick in there.
Oh, it's super thick, and it's slippery slide hill. You know, there's waterfalls everywhere. It sucks. But going up Cornell was beautiful. Man, I forgot how easy that ascent is. Mm-hmm. And there's that one spot, though, that you have to take your backpack off to lift yourself up right before the summit, somewhat before the summit. And I was just like, man, this is actually a little bit, you have to think more about this than the Cornell crack, because you're like, oh, I can fit up this. You kind of like, no, I can't. I got to take my pack off, got to put it up above that, and then I got to climb up. It was really fun. So get to the summit, wind is howling up on Cornell. Like, it must have been coming up through that like Panther slide area, the Woodland Valley area, and just pulverizing the mountain. And I'm just like, I'm going to go to Cloud's Rest, which is what I call that viewpoint over there, facing Friday and Dink and stuff like that. So I bushwhacked to Cloud's Rest. And when I approach that ledge of Cloud's Rest, there's bear scat everywhere. And I'm talking fresh. This stuff, there was like two of them.
Was it steaming? Was it steaming or not? Because if it's steaming, it's fresh. If it's not steaming, not fresh.
Two of them were steaming. There was 8 bear scats around there with mountain ash, diarrhea stuff, man. These guys have problems. And I'm just like, I'm looking around, I'm like, well, this is a little concerning. So I take a lot of pictures, and then I leave. And I took a video of it. You can check it out on Instagram.
Of the steam? Did you do the steam coming up?
No, just the amount of piles that I saw in this, I would say, general 10-foot circular area. It was pretty crazy. And then I go and I bushwhack on the other side of Cornell. Have you guys ever looked at Cornell from Google Maps?
Sure.
No. Cornell Mountain, if you look from Google Maps, it's an arrowhead. it's very cool, very distinct. Just zoom in a little bit to the top of Cornell Mountain. It looks like an arrowhead. Awesome points. It's very unique. And so I bushwhacked to the other side of Cornell, and I got a view of Panther, Slide, stuff like that. And that's where the wind was freaking booking, 40 to 50 mile per hour gust. And I'm just sitting there getting pulverized and enjoying it because I love the wind. I love the extreme conditions. I love being part of that and just having that like I'm alive. And so I get off of that. I bushwhack up thick as heck, and then I come back. The one thing that I was just like, I have something to eat in the call, and then I start my ascent back up Slide, and I'm going slow as fuck. I am just like, God damn, this is brutal. Like, what is wrong with me? And it was just absolutely brutal going up that, and I was slow as heck. And I was just like, I was dreading it. I was moving at, I mean, to me, like I was moving at 2.7 miles per hour. That's decent for me.
Yeah, that's pretty quick.
Yeah.
Going up Slide.
Yeah, well, not even that. That started going up Slide, and I started to decrease significantly because my legs were tired as heck. And you once again, you hit a little bit of snow going up above 3,500 feet. That seemed to be where the snow was lingering about. But the sun was beaming down, so it was kind of melting it. But there was no ice at all. Didn't have to throw on the spikes. I had them in the pack. And I ascend up Slide, and there's this one kid coming down, and I'm just like, I move to the side. The kid just waves to me. I'm like, hey, how's it going? Fucking flies right by me. Doesn't even say anything. Has his earbuds in. And I'm just like, I seriously yell at the top of my lungs. And I forgot what movie is this. I'm like, well, fuck me, right? Just keeps on going. Seriously doesn't care. And I'm just like, man, that would have been great to have a conversation with a fellow hiker, but he had no clue.
Maybe you scared him. Maybe he was afraid of you.
Maybe he thought you were a bear.
Yeah.
I looked normal.
You smelled like bear scat.
I know, yeah, right? I had bright teal stuff on to like tell that, but he seriously didn't care. And then, spring is flowed.
What was the age of this person again?
Oh, he was young, 20s.
Okay.
Totally oblivious, probably listening to our show.
Yeah.
So
yeah, he was listening intently, and that's why he didn't stop. So
yeah.
I understand.
You don't have to have a conversation, but you should at least look up and say hi and acknowledge somebody on the trail.
Oh yeah. He seriously just booked right by me, and I was like, all right, whatever. I meet another guy towards the top at the Burroughs plaque, and he wanted to go down and check, and I was just like, yeah, it's pretty amazing. He was a cool dude. I summit, and then I'm back on the descent of Slide, and I start booking. I gotta tell you, I'm kind of liking trail running down the trails. Like, I'm booking back. But Ken, do you have ever this moment of where your legs are moving faster than your mind, and then you're like, holy shit, how do I stop? Like, you kind of hit that moment of like, Jesus Christ, something's going wrong. And then you have to slam on the e-brakes to be like, oh wow, like that was a little scary.
Well, as I've gotten older, I've gotten more conservative.
Okay.
So I've stopped before I get to that point, typically.
Yeah, there was times of when I was booking down the mountain and my legs are going and my mind is just like, what do I do next? And I'm like slamming on the e-brakes and like hitting the tree.
That's what the really fast people do. They're, just barely under control. It's the slow people like me that are that you do not want to, crash and burn. And so we're very careful.
Yeah, it was phenomenal. Hit some beautiful spots. I meet up with a girl on their way up that just started from Woodland Valley, camped at Giant Ledge, and then she's going up to the call of Cornell and Slide. And she was cool. Her name was Cass, and I gave her one of our business cards, and she's like looking forward to looking into she's like, I've been looking for a Catskill podcast. I'm just like, well, ours is the one. And then I ran into a lady coming down from Slide. Her name was Lisa, I believe. And we chatted about slide. She went to the stairs, saw the stairs, and then turned around because she didn't want to deal with that. And I suggested, like if you want to do that kind of stuff, get some Catulas. They're shorter. They're more for like the thinner ice. And then if you want to get the hill sounds, that'll be for the thicker ice. And after that, I went down to I finally finished. And overall, I think it was 9. Hold on.
9 days.
Yeah, 9 days. Jesus. 9.
Well, you said you slowed down on the way up.
Yeah, 9.95 miles with 3,200 feet of gain. So good day, beautiful day, absolutely fantastic day. After I was done at the trailhead, I got out my frickin' 55-gallon bags. And I cleaned up the trailhead, which was pretty crazy because there was White Claw cans, there was toilet paper, and there was there was a pair of hookahs and what's it called? Socks right by the porta john.
Really?
Yeah. So I took those in. I'm just like, well, maybe I can clean these up and use them.
Yeah. Why don't people, if they're going to throw stuff out at the trailhead, why don't they just throw out money? Wouldn't that be nice? Then it would encourage everybody to do a little pickup activity. I was over there. I did Catskill Cornell via Shogung and Little Slide on the 25th. And as I said when I gave that hike report, I spent before the hike about a half an hour cleaning up the parking area. And then about another 5 or 10 minutes when I was done with that hike, because the amount of trash in the parking lot was outstanding. I mean, it was really depressing to see that. I didn't find a lot of stuff on the trail, but I found a ton of stuff in the parking lot, and it just reminds me to say, leave no trace. Doesn't start at the trailhead. I mean, it really is everywhere you go. Even in recycling at home is important to minimize your footprint on the planet. So I encourage everybody to shop conscientiously in terms of the packaging materials they get stuff in, all the way to, pack out what you pack in. And if the person who parks next to you or the person who parked there the day before was careless, take a couple minutes, clean up the area. Where was it? It was on the Summit Slide when I hiked it on the 26th. I found 2 cigarette butts. Right on the summit rock.
But those hookahs aren't or hookahs, whatever you call them, aren't cheap. Those are like $90 to $160. So somebody had no care in the world to leave those behind.
Well, maybe the people that were using them were in the porta john, and when they came out, they were a little upset you took their hookahs.
Yeah, not at all. So it was a fantastic day. I would have to say, besides that little sloth up slide, it was one of the most fantastic days in the mountains, just because of that wind, just the gust that were happening. Like some of the times it would just completely stop, and you would hear it hitting Slide Mountain, and then it would come through, and then it would hit Cornell. And I'm just like, Jesus Christ, this has got to be the best day that I've ever had in the mountains. So
one of the great experiences of being in a mountainous area is hearing the wind roaring through the mountains, coming towards you or going away from you. I would love to hear you describe with the same sense of enthusiasm the weather on a hot and humid August day.
Fuck that.
Right? This is where people who don't hike in the winter are missing out, because they hike in June, July, and August, where they're dealing with bugs, heat, and humidity. Right.
Oh, June, July, and August are my favorite time of the year.
No shit.
Man, not
Ken, wow.
Yeah, Ken's hardcore. I guess if you're not wearing shoes, maybe your body just cools off better. Maybe
not wearing shoes,
trapping in the heat.
Not wearing a shirt. He has just shorts on. He's flying
naked hiking. Right?
Yeah,
This is next.
and the no bug spray. But Stash, I heard those winds in Harriman this morning. Maybe not quite as dramatically, but you know, I always try to visualize the wind. It doesn't come blowing in like a sheet. It must. I figure these are rollers, right? Because you hear them, you know, and they're tearing up the leaves in a tree, you know, over there, and then they reach you. Right. Or maybe they don't even reach you.
Yeah. It's just, you know, and the crazy thing, and only a couple times did I kind of like, I was like kind of concerned of when it was like, I'm like, oh, wow, that's a gust. Kind of like, I kind of braced myself for impact because I was just like, wow, that was a little real, this is a little too rough. But other than that, it's just like they hit the tip tops of the trees, and then I would have a constant 20 mph through the trees, which is pretty significant in the Catskills. You got to admit, like usually not much hits you
You're
through those.
sheltered down in the in the forest. A lot of times the wind is just overhead.
Yep, and it's just glorious day. So sorry I took so much time. So
that's all right.
That was fun to listen to, actually.
I'm sorry I couldn't make my hike up Hawkett more entertaining.
You know, it's about time that I got entertaining than other people.
I'm gonna this weekend though. I'm gonna do a dramatic hike. That's what I'm gonna set out to do. I got to top you with drama now that I see that the weather forecast for Saturday is. I'm not going to say it's bad.
I mean, once again, it's Tuesday, so it could change dramatically. So, once again, volunteer, New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. Ken, you know, you're involved with that. Once again, get a hold of Ken if you need some, you want to do some trail volunteering.
And actually, Stash, if I could, I'd love. I was just out, like I said, in Harriman, and I've been hiking in Catskills over the summer and the fall. I just want to give a shout out to I think it's 2,100 volunteers of the Trail Conference, and just give everybody a big thank you. As somebody who uses the trails, you know, the ones down in Harriman are beautifully maintained. I never have a problem on the trails, and also a thank you to the staff. We have 30 staff. You can't have 2,000 volunteers without having an organization to keep track and manage and deal with the state. And I was thinking, I use the Avenza maps map app, and that's the Trail Conference maps that Jeremy Apgar produces. He's our star cartographer, and they're so much better than All Trails or Gaia. So much easier to read, and he very carefully goes and checks all the details. So thank you for mentioning the Trail Conference, Stash, and our volunteers.
Every time. They do a fantastic job. Anybody who volunteers does a fantastic job. So if you need any advice or any kind of guidance, get a hold of Ken, get a hold of the New Jersey Trail Conference. Yep. Ken is always great with that stuff. So once again, 3,500 Club, Catskill Trail Crew, Catskill Mountains Club, Visitor Center, Jolly Rovers Trail Crew. Get a hold of anybody and everybody to volunteer. It's worth it. And it can help us out on the long run. Also, if you need stickers, get a hold of me. I'll send you some for free. I just need an address, so send me a personal message. Also, go to Camp Catskill. You can get them for free there as well. So let's go to last weather forecast. We got this Friday. Looks to be nice and sunny. High of 45 in the afternoon, evening, with a low of 21 in the morning, with significant wind gusts of 50 to 43 miles an hour. This is on Hunter Mountain. So, and then once again, Saturday, it kicks down to basically any wind gusts at all, a high of 43 with a low of 36, but with rain here and there. The rain is very minimal, 0.03 inches for the day. So Sunday looks to be absolutely beautiful, partly cloudy to mostly sunny, high of 43 with at night a low of 0 with the wind chill kind of kicking in. So once again, get out, have some fun, be prepared, layer up, pack those spikes. You'll need them. So let's get on to our last set of sponsors, and then we'll get on to Ken, finally. Jesus, sorry, Ken, this is taking so long. Jesus. So, capture your love story against breathtaking backdrops with Outdoor Chronicles photography. Molly specializes in adventure couple photography, and she'll immortalize your moments amidst stunning landscapes of the Catskills, Adirondacks, and White Mountains. She'll craft timeless images that reflect unique bond in nature's grandeur. Embark on an unforgettable photographic journey with Outdoor Chronicles photography. Don't hesitate to get a hold of Molly on all platforms. Also, discover the wilderness with Trailbound Project. Our expert-led hiking and backpacking education programs offer unparalleled outdoor experiences. Whether you're a beginner or seasoned adventurer, join us to learn essential skills, explore stunning trails, and connect with nature. Start your journey today with Trailbound Project and unlock the great wonders of the outdoors. All right, so let's get on to the guest of the night.
Let's go.
Finally. Jesus, sorry about that, Ken. Like, that was a long shooting the shit. So appreciate you going with us and taking on that time to talk with us.
Glad to, Stash. I thought it was a super interesting conversation.
I agree. It's always good to have you on the show. I mean, you've been on the show 2 other times. Once again, guest of the night is writer, author, barefoot hiker, Ken Posner. He's going to join us again. This is your 3rd time on the show, Ken. Is that correct?
I guess that what they say is three's the charm.
Yeah. So episode 41 for your hiking barefoot, and then also episode 98. You were talking with Chuck.
Hank. Wasn't Hank on? Yeah.
Yeah, about the New York, New Jersey Trail Conference. So once again, glad to have you back on the show. Once again, you have contributed so much to the Catskills, the Hudson Valley area, that we definitely appreciate it. I'm glad you're finally getting a book about you hiking, chasing the grid, and stuff like that. It's good to hear about this. So, good to have you on the show. Welcome to the show once again. And why don't you give us a little background about yourself before we get into the questions and stuff?
Sure, Stash and Ted, and thank you for having me on the show. Simply, I consider myself to be an analyst, runner, and writer. And analyst is my day job, and running for me includes both running as well as hiking. It's just different gears. And as a writer, I have a blog, and from time to time I'll put together a book, and it's how I try to crystallize my thoughts about the world. So that's an enormous amount of fun. But my day job is as an analyst working in finance.
So what about like before that stuff? Like, how did you get introduced in the Catskills? How did you introduce into hiking and stuff like that?
Well, it's interesting. One of the things I think is super cool, particularly as I get older, is seeing kids get a chance to get some exposure to the mountains. And there are a lot of kids growing up in places like New York City where there isn't a lot of nature nearby. So I think that's super important. I say that because I remember when I was 12 and we went on vacation in New Hampshire in the summer, and we hiked up, I think it was Mount Jefferson. And, we would have been the original unprepared hikers in blue jeans, no map, no compass, certainly no fire starter kit.
What was this again?
What's that?
When was this again?
Well, this would have been 50 years ago.
Oh, well, then that's typical. What are you talking about? Inexperienced hikers. That's typical back in.
Right. but my point is, I think that was a real formative experience. So how did I get into the mountains and the Catskills? I think it all started with my folks taking us on a summer vacation and walking up a mountain.
Well, I mean, that's up in New Hampshire. It's pretty significant kind of a introduction to the mountains. That's like
we didn't know any better. It's just my dad must have pulled out a map and said, "There's Mount Jefferson. Let's go walk up it." And kids can do amazing things. We at the SRT Run. That's a race that I organize. We had a family do the 30-mile distance. There were 5 or 6 of them, including a 9-year-old.
Wow. So can you recap the SRT Run? That's like 72 miles, right?
The full distance is 70 miles, but there's
Okay.
there's a 30-mile version and a half marathon version. And we had a family with a 9-year-old just
Wow.
pick up and do the whole thing together.
And you're part of that organization that did the SRT run?
Yeah, that's Run Wild. So that's we put on 5 different races in the Hudson Valley, and we save the money from the races for land conservation. So recently we teamed up with Open Space Institute, and we're able to acquire the land, the 100 acres or so that contains Vercator Kill Falls in Minnewaska. And that was privately owned. Nobody knew that because the owners were cool and let people use the trail, but that was private property. And OSI just bought it, and with some help from us, and they're going to turn it over to the state, so that's going to be permanently protected.
We recently talked about that, Ken. So once again, thank you for doing that. That's an absolutely phenomenal addition to our public land. Once
sure.
again, to be honest, I've never been there. Tad has been there with his kids and stuff like that, so he knows the experience that it's a phenomenal place. We talked about it in our last episode, and that is a huge addition to I wouldn't say it's outside the line, but it's a Hudson Valley area, and it's a very critical part of the Hudson Valley.
Yeah, and so we want, as a community, we want to preserve more land when the opportunities surface, including in the Catskills. But I will say that the trail running community stepped up and people wrote checks, and the trail runners are passionate about the trails and the forests and the mountains. And so when you can get through to them and let them know about an important project, they'll step up and write checks, and it's all good. And New York is a great success story for conservation, and hopefully we can do some more.
How much did you guys raise again in the Run Wild?
Well, Run Wild raised $205,000, and the total cost was around $600,000.
Wow!
So we were delighted, but part of it is saving the proceeds from the races, the registration fees, right, for 10 years.
Oh,
right?
okay.
So that was some of it.
Still absolutely phenomenal, just by an organization that loves to run, that loves to these areas and stuff like that. $205,000. God damn, Ken.
Well, yeah. You know what I'm hearing here, Stosh, is that this acquisition you said was around $600,000, Ken.
Yep.
That's spit for a fellow who's involved in a hedge fund in New York City, who could have bought that and built a private retreat up there and kept everybody away.
Right.
Okay. But Ken and his fellow organizers of Run Wild and all the participants, basically collected all this money and were a driving force behind acquiring that and then making it available to the public to enjoy going forward. That's great. And, put it in perspective with the Forever Wild. That's public access now. Like I said, I've been up there before. We bushwhacked down from the top. It's quite a sight. I'm assuming over the years it'll become more accessible, and hopefully it'll be preserved and maintained in a more wild state than something like the Blue Hole area.
Right.
But
Jesus.
I think that's quite an accomplishment. So thank you, Ken. Really appreciate that.
Thank you, Ted, and a shout out to the Open Space Institute, because they've been working on this for years and years and years. But there's more projects out there, so hopefully we'll be able to do some more. The Trail Conference is involved in this too. You guys may know Andy Garrison, who's one of the senior volunteers. He's played a real leadership role on a number of acquisitions, and so we're working on something right now, but I don't want to jinx us, so we'll talk about it when it's done. If we can get it to the finish line.
Let us know where we can preach about it, please.
Sure.
So, Ken, let's talk about the finish line. And I understand that running and finish lines in one manner or form was a factor that led you to start barefoot hiking. So why don't you just give the listeners the quick story on how it is you went from trail runner to barefoot hiker?
Well, the short answer to that is by overdoing the running and getting injured. In the running community, there was a big bestseller that came out a few years ago called Born to Run. And that's actually the best-selling running book of all time. In it, Chris McDougall argued that, shoes are a great technology, but they can predispose modern runners to injury by just altering what would be your natural form. And, I read that book and I was starting to deal with injuries. So I was like, pragmatically, I've got to at least give this a try and see if it does anything. And the surprise was how much fun it was. And, it's not fun on gravel, but it's sort of a wild, I call it type 3 fun. It's super intense, super engaging, super mindful. And, after experimenting with it, and mostly hiking, I started out, barefoot hiking. After experimenting with it for a little bit, I quickly lost interest in shoes. Now, I still wear shoes in winter and when I'm in a rush. But if you had told me 10 years ago I was going to become a weird middle-aged barefoot person, I would have been really surprised. It was not my grand plan.
So when did you become you said middle age? So what age did you start doing your barefoot hiking?
Around 50, 51.
Oh, wow.
So you've been at this for over 10 years now.
Yeah.
Wow.
That's right,
and one of the things I'm interested in knowing, amongst other things, is you do the grid. The grid is 12 months, all the seasons. A few of those months, it's really cold, can be snowy, icy. You need traction equipment.
Yep.
Do you barefoot hike in the winter?
No.
When is it? No. When is it then you stop the barefoot hiking? How cold does it have to be for Ken to say, my hiking for the indefinite future is over?
It depends. It depends on the conditions. So the difference between, a sunny, still day and a day that's gray and windy, like Stash was describing, that makes a huge difference. So I've done some barefoot hiking in the Catskills in the 30s or even in the upper 20s when it's a little bit crusty, but that's not something I recommend. That's high risk, and I've done it a little bit to just see where those boundaries were. And right now I've got a different strategy, which is as the Catskills get cold, I head further south to Harriman.
Yeah.
And I'll probably be able to get in some hikes through December, and January and February will be pretty hit or miss.
So when you take time off because of winter conditions and you're not out hiking barefooted, is there anything you have to do when you start your normal hiking activities in the spring when it's warmer out? Do you have any routine you need to go through to prepare your feet for the next hiking season?
No, because I will keep active even if it's just on a treadmill.
Barefooted?
Yeah.
So if we came over to your house now when we looked at your treadmill, would you have sticks and rocks and whatever embedded into the bed of the treadmill to help your feet stay conditioned, or is it just a regular treadmill?
I don't even have a treadmill at home. Oh. I've been going to the YMCA in Middletown.
Gotcha.
Oh.
But the first time I went there, I got caught and scolded. I think they're okay with it now, but
gotcha.
I was going to say, I was like, did anybody say anything to you? Be like, hey, wait a minute.
Oh, yeah. One of the trainers or somebody, one of the assistant managers, read me the riot act.
So one of the other questions I have before we get on to the book, it's a question about questions. So when you're out hiking barefooted, it's kind of an oddity to see somebody coming towards you on the trail or passing somebody who's barefooted. And I assume you get asked one or two questions or more quite routinely. What's the most common question that you're asked when you're out barefoot hiking?
So the most common question is probably, are you grounding?
And?
And sorry, with our episode 41, you briefly discussed it, but you can discuss it again. And once again, that's definitely, I remember that in episode 41.
So I'll tell you right now, I don't know anything. I'm not an electro physicist. I can't tell you if ions or electric currents are actually passing through your feet. I do think when people say grounding, they understand that there's a psychological benefit to going barefoot because it creates instant connection and mindfulness. And, we live in a world that we're so distracted and bombarded with information, as we all know, that, going barefoot has this great benefit of clearing all that out because you have to pay attention to where you're stepping. I mean, I was just down in Harriman this morning, as I mentioned, and there's some lovely trails and some nasty trails, and it's all covered with leaves right now. So you can't see the rocks. So you have to really pay attention to every step. And it's sort of intense and it's slow and it's hard work, but it flushes all that other nonsense right out. That's how I describe grounding, sort of the sense of focus and calmness that comes from, having to pay attention like our ancestors did, 100, 1,000 years ago.
And when you mention hiking at Harriman, I hate to say this, but what comes to mind is broken glass. Do you run into that in Harriman?
No. And I don't see a lot of glass, honestly. Now, if you're on a trail and there's a little speck of glass, now you're right, there is broken glass in Harriman, but actually it's all over the place now that I think about it. But the little bits of glass sitting on a dirt trail are not a problem because they're going to sink into the ground. Obviously you wouldn't want to walk through a place where somebody had smashed a beer bottle. But the whole thing about barefoot, part of it is you are paying attention to where you step. So you're going to see stuff. And in 10 years, broken glass has not really been a problem for me.
Interesting. Now, the precautions you take, with doing this, you have shoes and socks in your pack, of course, all times, right?
Pretty much. I mean, if I don't want to, I don't want to bring discredit on the practice of barefoot hiking by having to be rescued because I stubbed my toe or something. So I actually have shoes, and I actually carry hiking poles too. I rarely use hiking poles, but once I hurt my knee, like the hiker that we were talking about on North Point, and so the trekking poles are to make sure that I can get myself out. Once I was going up Algonquin in the Dax, and somebody looked at me and they were having a tough time, and they said, "Please tell me you have shoes in your pack." And I gave some kind of snarky answer about that not necessarily being his business, but don't worry, I know how to take care of myself. But for sure, if you're going to do barefoot or whatever you're doing, you want to be in control and responsible for getting yourself in and out without creating problems for other people.
True. Yeah, that's awesome. So once again, this all evolves into your new book called Chasing the Grid. So you want to explain about that book, what kind of it's about and stuff like that? Why,
Yeah, thank you, Stash. The fun thing about the book is, I had a super meaningful experience doing the grid, and I knew I had something to share. And the process of writing the book and talking with people about it helps crystallize those ideas. So I would say simply, the book is about getting energy from nature. And it's exactly like what you were explaining with how powerful you felt the winds up in the Catskills on Cornell Mountain. And the storyline, I was, at a point in my life where work was starting to hit some speed bumps, and my ultra running was also starting to hit speed bumps due to injuries. And so the two sources of energy in my life were both sort of sputtering out. And when I discovered the grid, I realized it was a way to pivot and to take on a new kind of project that wasn't necessarily about racing or, trying to go longer distances or hit a special time. It was more like a pilgrimage. But taking on that kind of project created a lot of energy in my life, and also gave me the chance to get out into the mountains and learn about them, and also learn about myself, and I think it also facilitated, change. And so I like to recommend, and hopefully people will read the book and feel empowered to take on their own projects at those key points in life with a goal to learning and changing as well.
So, what inspired you to create this book, become an author? Really, you've done books in the past, right?
That's right. I did a book on the long path a few years back. I ran that several years ago now, back in 2013. By the way, I believe Kumi Redpath is now out on the long path, trying to set a new record for the trail.
For what? Like fastest known time,
Yeah,
unsupported,
exactly.
supported?
So she's trying to do the whole long path in I think 6 or 7 days.
Wow.
So that is super cool. But you don't have to do ultra marathons. There's so many different ways to get out there, and the grid is a great project because you don't have to rush through it. You can get out to the mountains and check them off as you have time for them. So instead of trying to do something in a weekend, you can spread it out over a period of time. And to me, it's a very meaningful project. Now, you were asking about the writing, and I don't know, Stash, I was an English major in college, so I've always been interested in stories. And, but I feel like, if I'm going to do something meaningful, or if I do something that's meaningful, I want to share that. And so I'm sort of thinking, why don't I look for something meaningful to do so that I'll have something to share, right? So that's sort of how the thought process goes for me, anyhow.
Mm-hmm.
Nice. That's, you have once again a connection to the mountains, to the surface of the mountains with your barefoot hiking and stuff like that, and it kind of explains everything. What drew you to this and stuff like that. It's just your connection. Once again, you explained in episode 41 was kind of magical. It's
but there's I've been thinking about connection, and there's a lot of different ways to connect, and barefoot creates an immediate connection. But you guys know Steve Aaron, the photographer, and I've gone on hikes with him where he's pointed out to me, hey, that's High Point Monument in New Jersey, or that Skytop in the Mohawk Preserve. He's got a very good eye for the landscape. So, we can also get connected by being up on the vantage points and sort of connecting the dots. And you guys were talking about the Catskills crone, which I need to learn up about. But there's history, there's the plants and the animals, and the views and the winds, right? So there's so many ways to get connected. And what we all know does not create connection is technology. And, social media is great. I mean, you can connect with people, but you're not going to connect with the winds and experience them on social media, right? Sure. You can flip through pictures and it's like, oh, that's a nice picture, eighth of a second next. It just does not create that experience of being out there.
Correct. 100% correct.
One of the things I heard you say, Ken, that you felt empowered to take on a project, almost like you were setting out to manufacture an experience. Hmm. And so I heard that correctly, right?
Yes.
And why is it that you felt that you needed this type? I mean, so if you have like this whole spectrum of experiences that you could choose from, like a friend of mine just got done hiking Kilimanjaro. Wow. Sounds like a very interesting thing to do. Why is it you chose the grid? What was it in your life that drew you to it, and what were you expecting to get out of it?
Well, the direct answer to that, Tad, is random chance. And so here's the crazy thing. I don't know if you guys have heard of the Diratessima that Teddy Kaiser, Cave Dog, did back in the year. And then Mike Sudi recently broke Teddy Kaiser's record. And for your listeners, if you haven't heard of it, the Diratissima is a challenge to do all 35 of the Catskill high peaks in one go. And Mike's record, and forgive me, Mike, if I don't have the exact, it's like 2.5 days, right?
Yeah. Insane.
Yeah, it's totally insane. So I was trying to do that. And I don't want to spoil the plot, but you'll notice Mike broke that record, Teddy's record, and my name was not mentioned. So I didn't break any record there. But I was trying to do it, and I ran into Mike City, and I coincidentally right below Balsam Lake Mountain, and I was like, I know who you are, and he had this funny banner on the back of his backpack. It said 35 times 12 equals 420, and I was like, what's that? And he tried to explain it to me, but at that point I was on my second day straight with no sleep, and I'd had half a liter of water for like the last 12 hours. And I was sort of wobbling a little bit, and he tried to explain it, and I didn't understand, and I pushed it out of my mind. And then a few weeks later, I was on another hike, and somebody mentioned it again. And this time they explained it. You have to hike all 35 high peaks in the Catskills in each month of the year. Doesn't have to be 1 year. You can spread it out. And that's when I got it. So, I mean, at that point in my life, I suppose I could have done anything, but randomly I discovered the grid. And when I finally got how it worked, I was like, this is going to be perfect for me. Because I had been doing this aggressive ultra running, including trying to do the Diratissima, and was getting to the point where I was starting to have chronic injuries. So I needed to do something that was going to be a little bit slower, and easier, and that could be scheduled out. But I also thought to myself, well, this will be the way to really get to know the mountains. And that was so exciting to me. The weird thing, too, at this point, and I think I was about 55, for all the hiking and running I've been doing, dating all the way back to that, hike up Mount Jefferson I was mentioning to you guys, at around 55, I came down with a major case of nature deficit disorder. And I was just dying to spend more time outdoors. And I think it was, I've been working for 30 years of conference calls and spreadsheets and PowerPoint slides. And that stuff's all great, but it leaves so much lacking in terms of that real connection and engagement. So that's why when I heard about the grid and it was going to be a chance to do something meaningful and big and a chance to spend a lot of time outdoors, at that point, it just took over my life.
Amazing. So with this book, what is your kind of overall message for the reader?
Well, the message would be, first of all, it's okay to need to spend a lot of time in nature. And, look, maybe some people are perfectly fine in an office cubicle in a shopping mall, but there are a lot of us who need to be in nature, and it's okay to spend a lot of time in nature, number one. Number two, it's okay to create a project for yourself. And it could be the grid. It could be something else. It could be all trails, Tad, like you're working on, you're almost done with. That's another great project if you want to take a break from the high peaks. And but these kinds of projects can be very meaningful. And they're a chance to learn about the mountains or wherever you're going, but also a chance to learn about yourself. So that's what I would encourage people to think about, particularly at those key points in your life where, maybe you're on a certain path and it's starting to run out of steam a little bit. And Thoreau warned that the majority of men live lives of quiet desperation. We all get to some point in our lives where we start to feel the energy dwindling, and there is that sense of quiet desperation. And at least for myself, I feel like I can't tolerate getting into that kind of trap, right? And so a project like this can be a way to shake yourself up and sort of do like a reset and recover the energy. And I like to say in particular, it's not about, necessarily escaping to nature, but it's about getting energy from nature and then bringing it back to your desk job, your day job, your family, your community, whatever it might be. So that's really, I think, the message I'm trying to get across with the book.
So, Ken, you said it's a way to learn about yourself, hit the reset button, recover your energy. You're at or about the age of 55 when you set out on this project. We know you finished the project because you wrote the book about it. What is it you learned about yourself out there doing the grid?
Well, Ted, and we were talking a second ago about connection. And I think one of the key to connection is connecting with yourself, with the deeper layers of yourself. So one of the funny things I realized is out in the mountains is, how deeply I am egotistical, as I think we all are. And it came to me, I was coming down, I think it was from Sugarloaf, and I was out hiking in the middle of the night, or not the middle of the night, but it was dark and it was raining and nobody else was out there. And I was sitting under a ledge and I realized suddenly how quiet it had become. And I realized there's a part of my mind that's always judging other people, always sort of goading me to do more, run faster, try to be right. There's a part of me that's always getting mad when somebody, wears the wrong shoes or has the wrong kind of diet or, God forbid, votes the wrong way or has the wrong political views. And I realized how deeply entwined and what a drain of energy that was. And so, not to say that I, cured myself of egotism, but by recognizing it, by recognizing parts of yourself, it gives you that perspective to maybe start to manage yourself a little bit better. So I think spending the time out in the mountains helped me discover those kinds of things about myself. And I talk in the book about the ego, and I also talk about my inner demon, which I think I encountered. And in the day-to-day world, we're so distracted. It becomes so hard to hear the little voices and to get that perspective and recognition. I think that's one of the benefits of these kinds of projects when you're outdoors by yourself for extended periods of time.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So you talk about kind of trying to distance yourself and strip yourself of egotism. My comment on that is, in a capitalistic economy, a little ego or maybe a lot of ego gets you a long way, right? That's what gets you ahead in certain competitive job environments. And I get the sense
money, but not nature, though.
Yeah, well, but I get the sense Ken's working a job maybe on Wall Street as an analyst.
I was now I have I work in finance at a corporation.
Mm-hmm. But so at the time you were in that corporate environment with that corporate culture, and that energy was kind of like grating away at you and not letting you rejuvenate and whatever. And I'll relate this before we go on to my experience and the appeal to me of doing the grid. One of the appeals to the grid, and this is something that the DEC frowns upon, is gridding, as I understand their unit management plan for the trailless summits. But it forces you or requires that you undertake regular doses, almost like a prescription medication, instead of once a month going to the Catskills. When you start gridding, you're going every weekend. And as you go every weekend and you get around and you do one round after another round, it becomes more and more familiar to you, and you become more and more comfortable, and your body and your mind more and more associates that drive over to those now familiar mountains with like the soothing energy that everything starts to slow down, and and mellow out. And you're going to this place where you really now feel at home. You're like on your 6th round, your 7th round, your 8th round. You know where you're going, even if you haven't been up that side of the mountain that way before. And to me, it was just a great way to unplug from the intensity of my work life and go to this place where I knew no one was going to bother me. It was just going to be me and what was immediately around me. And I just found that just so relaxing and like meditative and all of that. And I'm going to tell you the most remarkable thing, Ken, about my experience was I wore shoes every day when I did the grid. So my message is you can find that without going barefoot, just as an aside. So you can get almost Ken's experience wearing shoes as opposed to not wearing shoes. So
it's nice to have options. By the way, Ted, I love how you comment about calling it a prescription. By the way, there are prescriptions that people can get that come in pills. And I'm not a doctor, I'm not a scientist. So there are choices, but like I was saying, it might be that the way we evolved or the way we were designed, however you want to think about it, we need a lot of nature or some amount. By the way, I'm sure you know Ralph Rindack, and I quoted him in the book because
fucking legend.
Yeah, absolutely. And we went up Ralph's ramp to
Friday.
To Friday, exactly, and we looked out, and he said, "Isn't this the best therapy?"
Yeah.
It's
but you remember Edward Abbey, Desert Solitaire, and he said, we need nature as a refuge. Without it, life in the city will drive everyone to drugs, crime, or psychoanalysis. So, for sure. And by the way, I don't know what the DEC's point of view is on gridding specifically. I haven't heard them talk to it. But grid users are some of are heavy users of the Catskills or whatever mountain range they happen to be. But I don't think gridders make up a very large percentage of total visits. And I'm going to guess that grid people are generally very responsible, and good caretakers. And a lot of grid people actually are helping. Like Ralph does this. He takes newer folks out there and teaches them to leave no trace and the other principles. So I would push back on DEC or other folks who think that gridding is a problem. But we have it's a good problem if we have a lot of usage of our favorite mountains, because that means people are getting out there and getting those benefits. And then we just have to manage parking and access and crowding. And I'll tell you what, I did the John Muir Trail, and that's a nightmare because there are very few permits. It's not a nightmare, but getting a permit is very difficult. So fortunately, we're not anywhere near that out here in New York. So I count us as fortunate.
I mean, the John Muir Trail, stuff like that, Pacific Crest and stuff like that are widely known with social media and stuff like that. That just kind of like it overflows, and you get 250 permits. That's a crazy amount.
And they're gone in seconds.
Seconds. Ken, you're probably sitting on there hitting refresh constantly. I've been there. I've done that. It's kind of crazy. When you're. I mean, with me being a corporate job, I had to stand behind like areas and hide to maybe get a permit to Havasupai, falls and just.
Oh, right.
And then, but I have these 250-foot waterfalls in my backyard that I can enjoy. I mean, there's a lot of people there, just like Havasupai Falls and stuff. But you know what? Like some of these waterfalls that we have here in the Catskills are just as magnificent as they have out west and stuff like that. So it's just.
But by the way, I was going to just say, spend one more second. Ted, you were mentioning, you're almost done with the All Trails challenge, and if your listeners aren't familiar with that, that's just walking all the 350 odd miles in the Catskills. That's a great project because it takes you out into the Western Catskills, which are just beautiful. I I did that a few years ago and rarely saw anybody in the Western Catskills. I'll tell you guys, I was out in the Northern Catskills back in May, I think it was. And I spent the weekend out there, didn't see a single person except for a trail conference maintainer. And down in Harriman, like if you hike during the week, I was down in Harriman today, didn't see a single person. So, there's going to be crowding and people are going to go to the mountaintops first. And there's so many other places you can go that, you can take a break from the high peaks if they're crowded, right? And
Correct.
You can go somewhere else or, and I think we're so fortunate to have so much space that we can spread out and manage these good problems of people getting out there.
Yeah. 372 miles.
Yeah. There's so much history in the western part of the Catskills. The geology and the forces that shaped it, albeit, part of the same periods and episodes as what we see in the eastern Catskills. They had a different effect out there because they were further away from the Acadian mountains that were being eroded away that formed the Catskill Delta, 300 and some million years ago. And you can see that in the rocks and the different consistency in the rocks out there. So it helps pull that whole story together. And it has been a very interesting experience, particularly when you can hike 19.6 miles out there, as I did a few weeks ago, and not see a single soul the whole day long.
Yeah.
But, I don't know if we want to get into this right now, Stash, but I'm going to take the dive into it. I'm maybe 3 miles away from finishing the all trails. I'm about halfway through my second grid, and I've got a sense of what Ken's experiences are. And to me, of what he's done that I'm familiar with, what to me would be the hardest thing is writing the fucking book. Okay? To me, going out and doing the hike, right, whether it's a mountain or a trail, even without shoes on, I would think is easier than sitting down writing the book. So why don't you tell us about that experience, Ken? When did you decide to write the book? How long did that idea percolate in your mind before you sat down and actually started writing it? And how many times did you just toss out what you had started writing and go back to square one, if at all?
Well, Ted, in my mind, I'm coming up with all the reasons to argue with you, except you're absolutely right. And I'm just thinking, I finished the grid in 2018. And the book is coming out in 2025. So what is that telling?
Yeah, right. And there was a pandemic spread in there too. So,
and by the way, I've been writing in my blog. It's called The Long Brown Path for years and years and years. So many of the grid hikes were already written up in the blog because they were meaningful to me. And so I had a lot of the material done, but it's to produce something that's readable does take a lot of work. And but as I mentioned, I would never recommend that somebody try to write a book unless they enjoy writing. And to me, it does use a different part of the brain. And if there's some balance in my life, it would be between going out in the mountains and then coming back and reflecting on it. So the writing is hard work, but it's a different kind of work. And that's what I like about this approach. If I spend my whole life in an office writing spreadsheets, slides, whatever, right? That just doesn't work for me. And I think if I spent my whole life in the mountains, I would get tired of that and, want to be able to do some reflection and some calculation and some writing. So to be able to do both for me helps me, I feel like, utilize everything that I bring to the table that I might be able to do something useful with.
Mm-hmm. So you didn't answer the part of the question that was, the either writer's block or the indecision in terms of where do I start this project, and how difficult was it, if at all, to get in that mindset, that flow,
Don't be a dick, Tad.
Yeah, that the book is coming out.
Yeah, and so like I've been writing my whole life, so that per se is not the challenge for me. Although sometimes I have to let things, sit for a while. I just wrote an article on something, and I had been thinking about it for a while, and talking with somebody triggered it, and suddenly it all came together in a few days. But so I'll give you a different kind of answer, which is where the book really benefited was from comments from other people.
It's through social media, right?
No. I'm talking about, I showed the draft to people.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And they said, what do you mean? Can the reader follow this? Didn't you already say this? So my agent, Stephanie Evans, has had a huge effect on the quality of the book, going through multiple drafts over several years. I have a friend, Michael Simon, who just gave me some brilliant coaching, on making the text snappier, because a lot of my writing, is business writing, and it's very bureaucratic and official sounding, and that's not what you want in a story when you want to grab people's attention. So he's been hugely influential, and several other people took time to read the book and give me comments. And that's why, if it's readable and fun and a good read, it's because of, all the help I've gotten.
So
for sure.
So what was the toughest part of the book to write?
The toughest part was not the, individual hikes, but it was pulling it all together. And I really spent some time. The last draft is where the lessons I learned started to come together.
Yeah. I mean,
so that was like, you get the ball to the 5-yard line, but you're not done. You got to get it across to get your touchdown. And so pulling it all together and distilling, the lessons, and in particular, the last section, I had this feeling that, again, it's not just getting out to nature, but finding the energy and then bringing it back to the rest of my life so that I can
that's a perfect.
Continue to live in a high energy state and not become a quietly desperate person because staying indoors all day is just not fun. Right?
Yeah. I mean, even like once a week kind of like resets me to zero for getting out and back into public. And like once again, I work a corporate job where, people don't give a really shit about me, but the kind of like flow that I have after I get out in the mountains and stuff like that, and just the energy that I give off kind of gives that vibe to people with like the flow of goodness and stuff like that.
I would agree with that 1,000%. And, I think years of running and hiking in the grid and the other things I've done have helped me just personally find the energy.
Yeah.
And then you beam it back at other people by being positive. And I will say, Ted, you were asking about, egotism in the corporate world. There are some hard charging people for sure, but you can also get into trouble if you're too egotistical and you interrupt somebody, or you're so intent on making your point and you don't realize you're actually wrong. You can hurt yourself. And so some of the best people in the corporate world, I don't want to say they're egoless, but they have their ego under control. They manage themselves. And so again, for me, that experience being sort of a naturally, egotistical person, just to all of a sudden have that insight that there's a large part of my mind that is always, sort of churning away, and to say, okay, ego, I hear you. I know you're there. Sit down, have a seat at the table. Let's talk, right? Like, if I'm in a race, Mr. Ego, you really want me to pass the next person, right? Because that gives you a thrill. But how happy are you going to be if I pass the next person and strain a muscle and I'm out for the next 3 months? So you start to learn to have a dialogue with different parts of yourself, and you discover the ego is not actually that smart. It just wants you to take risks and be great and be better than everybody else. And you're like, stop. If I act like that, people won't like me. So you start to have a dialogue, and you need a little bit of, or in my case, I needed some quiet to start to see the different parts of myself and how I fit together. And maybe I would have learned that listening to long conference calls and being in meetings and working in spreadsheets. I mean, we all learn some things over time, no matter what, but I felt like the grid was a good exercise in just almost like, you take apart your car engine and you put all the pieces on the floor and then you put it back together again. Now, don't let me do that to your car because I wouldn't know how to do that. But it was that kind of experience for me.
Well, so speaking of quiet times and learning from your experiences, I get the sense that you do more than hike, you do more than write books, you also read books. And you're probably a valuable resource for us and our listeners on what are the must-read books for all hikers. Do you have a short list of books that each hiker should read or put on their must-read list, or good Christmas gifts for other hikers?
Good point.
So, okay. I mean, obviously, in Chasing the Grid, I quote Thoreau from Walden and Emerson from his essay Nature and Walt Whitman's Song of Myself. And I quote Burroughs and John Muir, too. I'm going to assume that those authors are more familiar to your listeners. But here's a couple of other ideas. Snow Leopard by Peter Matheson, about a 1970s trip into Nepal searching for the Himalayan blue goat and the snow leopard. I thought that was fascinating and extremely well written. And Peter Matheson is also, he's also talking about Buddhism and his practice of meditation as he was trying to heal himself from the unfortunate passing of his young wife.
Ken, I hate to interrupt you, but I see you with more of like Buddhism, with your connection with nature and stuff like that. That's what I see you as with like episode 41 and stuff like that. Where your connection with nature reminds me a lot of Buddhism.
I think there's some themes that are universal. So I've been spending a lot of time. I'm a huge fan of Navajo culture. I've been reading some really interesting books by Navajo authors. We could talk about the ancient Greeks. We could talk about the Bhagavad Gita. I think throughout the world there is a theme about reconnecting to nature, and I think it just goes hand in hand with the fact that the growth of civilization around the world has led to ways of life that are necessary and very productive and very organized, but leave something behind from, how we used to live. And of course, the great theme in the Western tradition is leaving the garden. And, Thomas Cole said, we are still in the garden. The walls that shut us out of Eden are our own ignorance and folly. So I think you can find this theme throughout the world. Buddhism is sort of or Zen is sort of a reaction to Confucianism, which is a very rules-based, compliance-oriented kind of philosophy or system, at least based on what my Chinese friends tell me.
Yeah. So before we move on to this other project you're working on, any other must-read book suggestions? I wrote down Snow Leopard. Anything else?
Yeah, sorry to break that up.
Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey is a must-read. Colin Fletcher, The Man Who Walked Through Time, about his through hike of the Grand Canyon. He did the opposite of me. He went naked, except for boots, except for shoes.
So, well then.
Yeah, gee. All right. Well, we now we know what is Ken's next project.
What is it? Come on, Ken.
Shoeless Ken to pantless Ken.
Right. Well, you'll have to talk to Colin Fletcher about that. So that's another one that comes to mind.
God damn, is that? Oh, I don't know if I can deal with that, Ken. I don't know if we can have you on the next show with hiking naked.
No, that's not my. There is a National Naked Hiking Day. I think it's in June, but that's
Yeah,
not my thing. At least not
that's
yet.
it's the summer solstice.
I mean, yeah, but still,
Yeah.
like,
I actually can. If you don't listen to the podcast every week, but a few
oh God,
weeks
he
ago, I
talks
think
about
it
this
was
all the time.
in September. I had bushwhacked up Wyndham, and I was hiking down the trail, and I got to the Elm Ridge lean-to, and I was with two other people that I had met up on the hike down, and all of a sudden, just in my visual field, there was the silhouette of a hiker, but it just wasn't resonating to me what exactly I was seeing until he got closer, because it was so unusual that this guy was actually wearing nothing but shoes and a backpack, hiking naked in the Catskills. Very unusual to come across that.
Yeah.
So, but when I was referring to this other project you're working on, I see on your Instagram posts that you have set out to hike or climb 1,000 mountains barefooted. Is that right?
That's correct, Ted.
And how you doing on why did you start that project, and how you're doing on it, and what's your experience? And I want to go over some of the mountains like Mount Whitney, which is one of them. I understand you hike barefoot. So how did that project like formulate in your mind that this is something that you wanted to do?
Well, it was, I guess, an offshoot of the grid. I did the grid and then I did the All Trails Challenge. And I was sitting around, this was a couple years ago. It was December. So sort of a dark time of year.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what am I going to do now? And so I asked myself the question, well, what have I been doing? And it occurred to me I've been doing a lot of barefoot hiking. So I figured I must enjoy it if I've been doing so much of it. And I thought it'd be fun to create a project out of it. And the 1,000 mountains, the part of the goal of doing 1,000 mountains is to force myself to age thoughtfully. We all have to manage the aging process, and chasing the grid is about that because of the injuries that started to affect me in my ultra running. So I figured having a project would give me energy, force me to be thoughtful about the aging process. 1,000 is a big, round, bold number, so I like that. And I thought too, I can't be the only person who's having fun with barefoot hiking. There's got to be a lot of other folks out there who would enjoy it if they felt that it was something that they could do, if they felt it was accessible to them. So I thought if I did 1,000, then other people would say, hey, if he can do 1,000, surely I can do 1 or 2 or 3. And by the way, I'll tell you, Michael Bongar, from the Catskill 3500 Club, and I led a intro barefoot hike a few weeks ago, and we took a small group up Wyndham. And Michael was there, Steve Aaron, the photographer, was there. For them, it was their first barefoot mountain. And we had a bunch of younger folks, and they were like fish in water. I was like, hey, wait for me. So it was fun. It was fun to see. It was very feasible for everybody, notwithstanding acorns and rocks under the leaves, but it was very slow. We took our time. We spent all day going up to Wyndham and coming down. So I really do think it's accessible and that more people would have fun if they knew that other people were doing it too. So I thought this would be a project to show folks. I'm at 586 today. So I have done Whitney twice as part of hiking the John Muir Trail. But I've done a total of 5 14ers. So this summer I was out in Colorado and did Quandary.
Wow.
But I'm also doing little mountains in Harriman. They're like 1,000 feet tall.
So this is any 1,000 mountains anytime.
Yeah, it could be the same mountain 1,000 times if I wanted to. It's whatever strikes my fancy. And more than half of it is Catskills.
I mean, but you're a kind of guy that wouldn't do the same mountain 1,000 times.
Well, there are people that do that.
That's insane though.
There's a fellow in the Adirondacks who just finished 100 rounds, I think.
Wow. Yeah.
Yeah. But it doesn't matter. Nobody has to do what I do or you do, but everybody has to do what they have to do, right? And it could be different for each of us.
So why don't we can either go with that I get the sense that Ken's going to tell us that projects are important and why they're important.
I have already made that point.
Or Ken can tell us about hiking Mount Whitney barefooted, what that was like to hike the highest mountain in the continental United States with no shoes, boots, or sandals.
And so look, I was camping at Guitar Lake, and I set my watch for midnight, and I got up, and and I have, as you know, in the Sierra, it's cold at night, it's hot during the day, so I had wool long john and long sleeve shirt and the same. Actually, I think it was literally the same Patagonia down jacket and Gore-Tex top and bottom. And, heading out from Guitar Lake, the trail's not bad, but there was a little stream I had to cross and the water was really cold. And then you have a series of switchbacks. And actually, the trail up Mount Whitney is reasonably sandy. So it was not bad barefoot at all. It was probably in the 30s. So it was on the chilly side, but I was all bundled up. It was pitch black. And so I said to myself, I forget the exact number of switchbacks, but I was like, I think my phone or my map, whatever, had died. And so I was like, switchback 1 out, switchback 1 back, switchback 2 out, switchback 2 back, just to keep track. I think there's 7 to get to the top. And then when you're on the top there, you walk past a little gap on the crest and you're like, oh my, there's Lone Pine, 10,000 feet below, literally.
Wow.
Probably 20 miles out. And then, finally the summit, I got there to see the dawn, to see the sunrise. And so that was a very special experience, though. Especially and that was barefoot, yeah. And as soon as I got to the top, I put my shoes and socks back on because it was cold.
Wow.
So that was not one of the toughest barefoot mountains. I think the tougher ones have been in Arizona. I did Superstition Peak 5057 out there, which is east of Phoenix. And, if you take one step off trail, you're going to get impaled on a barrel cactus or a jumping Troya or a saguaro or something. It was steep and rocky. And I got to the top and I put on shoes to come down because it had taken all day to get up there. And then I slipped and hurt my knee, irritated the meniscus. So that took forever to get down. So that's probably the most difficult experience I've had. But it's that extra layer of intensity, and it can be a short hike. Like this morning I did, 4 or 5 miles. It was not a big deal, but it was very intense and very engaging because of just the need to place each step carefully and pay attention. And, as I was doing this, and it makes you feel more like, another animal in the forest. Not like a super, human apex predator armed with technology, and the wind comes barreling in and you're like, that's a little scary. I don't know what that means for the weather. And then you get to you have to fight your way through the blueberry scrub, and then you get onto a glacially scoured slab, covered with lichen. And there are these views across the lakes and also the highway, as you were asking about, Ted. And you get a break for a second. It just adds that extra layer of experience to the hike.
With that, ultra runners, like you're an ultra runner, stuff like that, with coming down barefoot, running down barefoot these steep areas, of course they choose kind of their rocks that they can kind of propel off of and stuff like that. Like, how do you choose that with being barefoot?
Yeah. I mean, I do a lot of barefoot running, but to be honest, it's mostly on roads.
Okay.
And I did a trail race with my son in Colorado this summer, and I wore shoes for it because I didn't want him to have to wait 4 hours for me. And it was funny. The first time I had run in shoes in a while, and going downhill, bombing downhill, the shock waves are so massive. Because barefoot, you can't do anything like that, right? You can't run, or I can't. Some people can. I can't run on a rocky trail. I have to step down carefully, one step at a time. But that's one of the nice things about barefoot, because you have to be careful. There are no shock waves, right?
Interesting.
And you see a lot of people, and they're getting hips replaced and knees replaced, or have back problems. And that's the question. Does do the shoes over time, for some people, alter your gait and cause the shock waves, cause you to take on bigger shock waves, and maybe they go to different parts of your body than would be the case if you were stepping naturally. Barefoot teaches you to step lightly, and it's subtly different from walking in shoes. Is a little bit more of a crouch. You're more conscious of engaging your big toe to activate the arch. You're more aiming for the outside edges of your feet. So it is subtly different, and you don't lock out your legs and stomp. It's more like prowling through the forest. So the theory is, there's no science one way or the other, but the theory is that this would be more natural and better for you over time.
The science, in my mind, makes it absolutely insane.
There's not going to be, one of the things that we have to be careful about science. There's not ever going to be any science. They're never going to find enough barefoot people to have a sample.
And why? Who would fund such a study? Because it doesn't sell any sneakers.
The anti-shoe company,
right? Yeah. Who the hell would? That's a good point. Yeah. It's just like,
yeah.
who would benefit from this? That kind of like nobody.
But Sash, I agree with you. You made the point, or Tad, you made the point. You can do this stuff with shoes or without shoes. You can go shirtless. Right? There's all sorts of minimalist things you can do, and the nice thing is we have choices.
Yeah.
But I think the question is, for people is, are you getting enough of that intensity that I think a lot of us crave? Like when you were talking about the winds, part of what I'm hearing is the need for intensity and excitement, and being there exposed to the real world and not hiding and sheltered from it.
Yeah. So that's absolute perfect explanation, Ken.
Yeah.
Thank you.
I think it's about getting out there and leaving, as much of society and the artificial constructions within society behind, and being outdoors in some level of environment, whether it's forested, a desert, a mountaintop, but going out there and not doing it for the purpose of having that selfie moment to post on social media, right? But just being able to, like Stosh was taking in viewpoints in the wind today, not with the aim of posting about it someplace, but just for being there and grounding mentally in that moment.
I have to say, mentally, it was I total complete reset. It's probably what Ken has when he once again connects with the ground barefoot. It just, that one, I could only imagine what people thought when they did that 3,500 club hike with you, with being barefoot. That must have been pretty special, as to introduce people to that kind of different philosophy of hiking. So it must have been fun.
I hope to do a little bit more of that, and I think people, we all have choices, so I think that's the key. But Ted, to your point, our work in the sort of the digital ecosystem, if you want to call it that, it makes us super productive, and we try to make it as convenient and easy and safe as possible. But there's always, a side effect. Like when you make things too safe and predictable, then you may start to feel a little bit stale. You may get into that low energy state. And so getting outdoors, you just shake that off a little bit, right? And reset and then go back and appreciate being back. That's the key, right? if you're not appreciating the productivity and the safety and the convenience, then maybe you have too much of that.
Yeah. I agree. I agree. Ken, one thing I want to know is where can we purchase this book besides the big dumb corporations that we have around here? Where can we go kind of like, I would say more of in person and stuff, but can we purchase online in different places like that?
Well, the place to go is Briars and Bramble in Wyndham. Jen there has the books in stock, and I did a reading there. It's my first chance to get out and do a reading, and so that is, as far as Chasing the Grid is concerned, Briars and Bramble is the place to go.
Awesome. I will have that in the show notes. And how can we, for the people, once again, that can't go to Wyndham, where can we purchase online but be more beneficiary to you as well?
Well, it's all going to be the same. So if Amazon is convenient, by the way, as a small-time writer, if somebody does buy it on Amazon and they enjoy it and want to write a review, that helps me.
There you go.
Because the reviews matter. The algorithms go through the reviews, and the algorithm wants to see more than a handful of them. So that's the best way to help me for anybody who enjoys the book and gets something from it. But Briars and Bramble is the local place, and Amazon is fine, or Barnes and Noble, or you can go to Simon and Schuster if you want to directly.
Awesome. So do you have any, I know that you and Steve did some events recently. Do you have any upcoming events that you want to chat about?
Oh, thank you so much, Stash. Yeah, Steve and I will be at Eureka Bookstore in Sugarloaf, New York on Friday, November 28th, right after Thanksgiving at 7 p.m.
Oh.
And I'll have the books. Steve will have his calendar. And Steve is in Chasing the Grid because we did a bunch of hikes together. And it was funny because here I am, an injured ultra runner. And, I'm like, well, I could go for a hike with this photographer guy because I had just met Steve. And it was sort of on a whim, but that was part of my pivot because going out with Steve, I started to realize, hey, you can go more slowly and you can stop at the top. And you can look, and Steve is a master of understanding the landscape and picking out the points. And we've done a bunch of hikes since then because when I'm barefoot, I'm typically slow, and he goes at a slow pace because he's always looking for imagery and images and pictures. So we became sort of an unusual pair, but it's been a great relationship that really started with one of the hikes that's in the book, actually.
So, Ken, one big question, the last question I had besides the post-hike Bruise and Bites, where was that picture taken from with the book Chasing the Grid?
That was taken by Steve. Here's the crazy thing, for all
is that Hunter in the background?
That's I think it's probably Sugarloaf is the obvious one. So that's from High Point in the Shwangunks.
Oh, wow.
And literally the book opens and I'm 50 years old. And for all the hiking and running that I'd done in the first 50 years of my life, I had never heard the mountains call. And I got up there and I was with Odie, my dog, and it was a windy day. The wind was howling out of the Catskills from the north. And that's the first time that I literally heard the mountains call. And they were sort of saying, hey, stay away. It's cold out here. So I think they were using, reverse psychology, which worked on me as it does on most people with, as it does on small children as well. But so Steve and I went out earlier this year and reenacted that scene, and he took the picture, and that's exactly where I was standing.
Phenomenal picture.
2013, whenever it was that when that first experience took place. So Steve and I have done a lot together, and I'm very appreciative of his pictures. He took a picture of Odie, my dog, and it's hanging on my wall. He has it's not just, he has a magic touch, not just with landscapes, but also with people and dogs and other things too. And butterflies. It's fun to see his talent grow over the years, and he's got as he deserves, a really big following of fans who appreciate his work.
Yeah, he's been on the show a couple times, and it's been
okay, great, yeah,
phenomenal time. So, last question, biggest question of them all: post-hike bruise and bites. You doing all this stuff in the Catskills, even in the outside of the Catskills, Hudson Valley? Where do you suggest to go?
Well, Tad was talking about Brio's coffee. I used to go to Brio's and get the espresso, which wasn't great. It comes out of a machine. But the last time I went there, they chased me out because I wasn't wearing shoes.
Oh, nice.
So now I go to, what is it called? Bread Alone.
Okay.
Nice.
And they've been a little bit friendlier to me. So they have my business for now.
Nice. Fantastic. All right. Well, once again, thank you for joining us, Ken. It's great to have you on the show again. Hopefully have you more times. We'll talk about, anything and everything in the future. I really appreciate it. You've looking forward to getting your book, as well as, everybody else hopefully purchasing this book, because I can't wait. It's phenomenal.
Well, Stash and Ted, thank you for having me on the show and giving me a chance to talk about the book and the other great things that are out there for us in the mountains.
Yeah, it was great talking with you tonight, Ken. Look forward to running into you on the trail, and I suppose I'll know who you are.
I was going to say,
by the size of your big toe.
And Dad, if I see somebody poking around in the rocks and pulling out some kind of artifact from beneath them, I'll know that's you.
It's me. I planted another crone in the Catskills this past weekend.
Right.
All right, so guys, paranormal famous.
Definitely. So
cool.
Once again, guys, thank you very much for joining us. I really appreciate it. Thank you to the once again, the supporters, the sponsors of the show. Really appreciate it. Thank you to everybody who's donated so far. And once again, 195 episodes in, Ken joins us. Thank you for listening. Really appreciate it. Couldn't have asked for a better crowd and stuff like that. So, Ken, have a good night. Tad, have a good night.
Thank you, guys.
See you guys again in the future.
Hey everyone, I just want to thank you for listening to the show. If you enjoyed the show, subscribe and throw down a smooth review on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or any podcast platform that you use. You can also check daily updates of the podcast, hikes, hiking news, and local news on Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, and the official website of the show. Remember this, you gotta just keep on living in the Catskills, man. Livin.
Wicked.